2 minutes to live stream, 1 minute to air. 2 minutes to the live stream, 1 minute to air. One minute to air. We are now streaming.
Recording in progress.
I ate the chocolate chip cookie and the peach cobbler.
Yeah, I did too. Hello, everybody, and welcome back, welcome back, welcome back. Good evening to everyone, including the fried chicken from Chicken Hut that we just had. It was super delicious. Thank you for that. And we are, got it. we are back. We are back for the first time after the break, and it is great to be back in the people's house. Tonight we are being streamed not only online as we have been for the last couple of years since COVID, but we are also finally back on Channel 8. And that has been a huge source of being able to watch what's intimately known as the government channel. So for all of you all that are tuning in to Channel 8, it's good to be back with you. All right. So now we will have the roll called. Madam Clerk.
Mayor Williams.
I'm here.
Mayor Pro Tem Middleton.
I'm here.
Councilmember Baker.
Here.
Councilmember Caballero.
Here.
Councilmember Cook.
Here.
Councilmember Freeman.
Present.
Councilmember Rist.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And we've had quite the traveling and active council over the summer. We had a very long summer break, about 3 to 4 weeks. And we are back feeling renewed and refreshed and ready to get started. So I look forward to hearing announcements and comments by council members. And I will start traditionally to my left with Councilmember Cook. Oh, I'm so sorry. You know what? I'm also going to get back in the rhythm and not skip things and stop looking at the work session agenda here and go to my regular council meeting agenda. There we go. A moment of silence, please. Thank you. I was in work session mode. My apologies. Now we will go to my right for the Pledge of Allegiance.
It's our practice to stand and salute the flag if you'd like to join us.
All right, due to my being out of order, we've already called the roll. So now I'll go to my left to Councilmember Cook for announcements.
I'll be brief. We had a work session earlier today, so many of us already did our announcements. I went first. I did not get my chance to thank City Manager Page. I thought you were going to announce your retirement, but so I didn't want to do it first. So my bad. But then I just wanted to add on to what my other colleagues have said. I've only been here for 6 months, and you have imparted just an amazing amount of information and helped me so much through this transition. So thank you so much, and we're happy to have you for a few more months here, and then we will be sad to see you go. But I think you're leaving an extraordinary legacy in the city of Durham. So thanks for your service.
Thank you. Councilmember.
Yeah, I already made my comments during the work session today. It's great to be back in this room with you all, and thank you all so much for coming to this meeting. Look forward to this meeting and look forward to the rest of the year working together with you all to get stuff done.
All right, Councilmember Caballero.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't really have anything other than I'm going to mention the bond again. Plan on that almost every single announcement until November. So I want to thank staff for getting the website up. If you go to the city's website, you will see information on the infrastructure bond. You will also see lots of community events throughout the fall, gearing up to when we vote. Early voting starts in October. And it is really, really important that Durham turns out for this election for many reasons, but for Durham city residents, often you don't have a city business on your ballot on an even year. This year you do. There's 2 ballot measures, one for sidewalks and streets, and one for 3 parks. And so it's very, very important that Durham turns out for this critical infrastructure, and you will be hearing a lot about the bond from me and my wonderful colleagues. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Freeman.
Thank you. I also shared a lot during announcements at work sessions, so I won't do the same, but I will just add that the Communities in Partnership and their Transformational Justice Initiative will be hosting the expungement clinics in August, October, and December, and they are looking for attorney volunteers. And so I did want to make sure that I lifted that up and asked that if you are an attorney in our community and you're interested in getting trained on how to do the expungement clinic, that you reach out to Andrea Muffin Hudson with the North Carolina Bail Fund, as she'll be leading that effort. And so I did want to make sure folks knew. And that's all. Thank you. Oh, and happy Black August. And making sure to lift, because we weren't here for July, Disability Pride Month. And also, there's one more, but it'll come to me. Thank you.
Can you repeat the organization that you mentioned earlier?
The North Carolina Bail Fund.
Bail Fund.
Yes, with the Transformational Justice Initiative through Communities in Partnership. They'll be hosting town halls and expungement clinics throughout the month, throughout the rest of the year, I think beyond. And that is attributed to the ARPA dollars that they received. So, thank you.
Perfect, thank you. Councilmember Rist.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good to see all the folks in Durham here. Good to see you all again after a month away. I also shared comments in the work session. Don't need to repeat those. I will, if I may take a moment of personal privilege, just to say my wife and I during July were overjoyed to hear that our oldest son, Jeremy, way out in California, and his girlfriend, Jess, got engaged. So we're so proud for them. Look forward to that. And actually, that falls on the heels of Councilmember Cook and Councilmember Baker announcing that at our last meeting. So I think it's quite appropriate. Also, I should say, as I look over and see Mr. Johnson from Community Development, Mr. Johnson knows Jeremy about as long as anybody in his life. We were colleagues together in grad school when Jeremy was born. So it's a great sort of bookends on that. So thank you for letting me share that. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Well, it's a council of love. Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Your Honor, and good evening to my honorable colleagues, everyone in the room, those watching on whatever platform you may be watching. It's a great break. Good to be back. I'm always excited and humbled to be in this room that belongs to the people. I'm humbled because this room really represents the way we disagree and agree in our system. This room represents our coming together to deliberate without guns or knives or striking each other, but talking to each other. and carving out shared space. So it's really good to be back in this room and honored to be here with my colleagues. Mr. Mayor, earlier today I also expressed my gratitude to the city manager, this brilliant city manager, and I'll associate myself with all the comments that were made. Didn't make any announcements, but I did want to make one announcement tonight. First, I'm really excited about this budget that is now in force. There's a lot of money in this budget for a lot of great things. And one of the things I'm excited about is our guaranteed income initiative here in the city of Durham, which has gotten a bunch of attention, and you've heard a bunch of different opinions on guaranteed income. I'm looking forward in the next few weeks and months to concretize that conversation and centralize it based upon Durham data points, not anecdotes or not folks' feelings about it, gut feelings, but what actually happened when Durham did guaranteed income and what we want to see happen with the next iteration of it. There's money in this budget for that, and I'm looking really forward to leaning in. I want to thank my colleagues for embracing that among the many wonderful things that this council embraced in this historic budget that was passed at the end of June. So looking forward to getting back to work on behalf of the people. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, colleagues.
Thank you. And I think Madam Manager has an announcement that she was joking about retirement. Did y'all catch that face? All right. Yeah, it's been a long day for the council. To allow us to have a full month, we decided to reschedule the July meeting to today. So we've already had a work session today, and we had a photo shoot this evening, and now we're having a council meeting, and then we have another meeting on Thursday, and then another one on Friday. So it's going to be a hectic, busy week in addition to all of your full-time jobs, all of our full-time jobs. Wish us luck. Earlier today, I mentioned a few dates. There will be some meetings you won't see me here, but I promise I'll be doing great work on behalf of Durham. It's been a very successful 6-7 months of bringing resources home, and I look forward to continuing that work. Also, I have a few friends here. We're friends of the council, and I would like you all to come stand up here for a moment if you are with Bike Durham. I know you were not expecting to come all the way up, but you're here. So earlier today, and she's acting all shy, but I saw on Instagram you were dancing on the dais earlier. No. I wanted to publicly thank you all. As Mayor Pro Tem said, there's a lot of money in this budget. But anytime there are community members who look at our budget, look at the projects, and say, we want to partner with the city, oftentimes we get complaints at the city, as policymakers. But when someone says, we want to partner with you, we see you're going the right direction, we're going to do our part. And no, we're not going to level with you. You're an institution, but we are community members coming together, for a very good purpose. And we want to partner with you and add to that. So we had $500,000 allocated for the I'm forgetting the project. There's so many. We have $500,000 for a project, and Bike Durham added to that $60,000. And I just wanted to thank you all for just being great partners, great friends, and putting forth the work as an organization that's really purpose-driven. And thank you, and share the picture with me. I'll put it on my socials and share it with everyone. So just wanted to say thank you. All right, as Councilmember Freeman stated, Councilmember Caballero stated, we have the bond on the ballot this year. It's going to be really important. There are a lot of things we need to invest in this city. I know we can't do it all at once. I know we don't always get what we want when we want it, but we do what we can when we can, as we can. And I hope that we'll be supporting the bond referendum this year. While you're on that ballot, just get to the ballot, please, okay? I can't go deeper than that. Just get to the ballot, so make sure you're registered to get to the ballot so that you can support what's good for our community. And you can take that how you will. I believe that's all. Oh, yeah. Also this summer, the city of Durham is what I'm calling a Bloomberg model city. We have had lots of investments from the Bloomberg Philanthropies Foundation, and there are more to come. When Mayor Bill Bell was elected, so was Michael Bloomberg. They had a great friendship. And Steve Schul, Mayor Schul, when he was involved, he was a Bloomberg Fellow with Bloomberg Philanthropies, and brought a lot of amazing ideas to the city, such as the DEER program, license restoration. We were able to do public art by painting our crosswalks. That was supported by Bloomberg. The Innovation Lab that we have here was supported by Bloomberg. What else? The DEER program, the Back on the Bull campaign after COVID, and other matters. Mayor O'Neill focused on finding housing for justice-involved individuals. And that was my turn, fortunately, to continue the engagement and involvement with the Bloomberg organization to work with mayors around the world. And this year I'll be headed to, just got back from New York City, was sending staff members from my office and the budget office to New York next week to gather these resources and help me activate them here in Durham. So I can't wait to share what those ideas are, as I was telling my friends earlier. And looking forward to heading to Mexico City soon to continue working with mayors around the world to play around with these ideas, put them in practice, and bring them back to Durham. So glad to represent us on that scale. And with that being said, we are 15 minutes in, and we're going to get to work. So I will now head over to the manager for priority items.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, members of the Durham City Council. I would like to take a very brief moment, personal privilege, to make a few remarks, as this is my first full meeting of the council, to announce my retirement from the city of Durham after 36 years of service.
Here.
I am very grateful for the unwavering support and the guidance I have received from you, Mayor, previous mayors, the City Council, previous council members. Your trust in my abilities and your commitment to our shared values, shared vision, have been the driving force behind our accomplishments. Together, we have achieved notable milestones, we've overcome challenges, and we've created a legacy that will continue to benefit generations to come. This is very important because I would like to express my heartfelt appreciation to the entire municipal government staff, those here in the chamber and those listening or who will watch this video at a later time. Their dedication, their hard work, and unwavering commitment to the well-being of this community have been the backbone of our success. I have been privileged to work with such an exceptional team, and I am confident that they will continue to serve the community with the same passion and excellence into the future. Although I will be retiring from my role as city manager at the end of the calendar year, my love for this city and its residents will endure. I will always cherish the memories, the relationships, and experiences I have gained during my 36+ years here. Rest assured, I will continue to support and contribute to the community as a resident And the number, I was going to say the number one, but I think I'm going to be the number 2 cheerleader. The number 1 cheerleader is here to my left. But we are, and forever shall be, Bull City strong.
Yes, yes.
Huh? Yeah, we're going to take a lot of
We're going
selfies.
to take a lot of selfies.
All right. Was that your priority
That's
item?
my priority item, sir.
All right. Madam Clerk, as I go to, our friends are standing right here. You guys can see the clerk. Madam Attorney?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem Middleton, and members of the council. The City Attorney's Office has no priority items tonight.
Thank you. Madam Clerk?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, and City Council members. The City Clerk's Office has no priority items tonight.
Thank you so much. I will now read the consent agenda, and as I'm getting into this, I want to thank the new faces that are in the room. I have been getting some correspondence of folks saying, hey, I just want to start coming to meetings, and I love that. I really appreciate that. So welcome to you as well. All right, so I'm now going to read the consent agenda. Item number 1, Mayor's Hispanic Latino Committee appointments. Number 2, Racial Equity Commission appointment. Number 3, Durham Board of Adjustment appointment. Number 4, Citizens Advisory Committee appointment. Number 5, Recreation Advisory Commission appointments. Number 6, Durham Planning Commission appointment. Number 7, Workforce Development Board appointments. Number 8, Durham Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Commission appointment. Number 9, approval of City Council minutes. Number 10, fictitious employees performance audit, June 2024. Number 11, solid waste and recycling performance audit, June 2024. Number 12, contract with Submittable Holdings, Inc. for software and to streamline American Rescue Plan Act grant processes. Number 13, fiscal year 2024-25 capital improvement plan budget ordinance amendments. Number 14, resolution to authorize Kroger opioid settlements and a second supplemental agreement for additional funds. Number 15, agreement to fund Haiti Reborn Justice Movement, HRJM, using City of Durham grant funds. Number 16, pre-development agreement with Habitat for Humanity of Durham for the Beeman Street assemblage. Number 17, cooperative group purchase contract 1, fire aerial ladder platform truck. Number 18, contract with governmentjobs.com, Inc. for software to manage job recruitment and applicant tracking functions. Number 19, a resolution accepting 2 North Carolina Land and Water Fund grants to construct the South Ellaby Stormwater Project. I can hear people cheering on the TV right now. Number 20, South Ellaby Stormwater Project Declaration of Covenants. Number 21, American Rescue Plan Act, ARPA project, digital literacy training and computers.
Mr. Mayor, I don't want to pull that one, but I just did want to recognize what a great project that is, giving priority to DHA residents for an innovative digital literacy training program funded by ARPA funds. And one of the folks who worked on that, who's no longer with the city, but worked with Technology Solutions, Jenna Bryan, is in the audience. So thanks for being here, Jenna, and thanks for the great idea. It's a wonderful project, so thank you.
Good work. Thank you, Councilmember Rist. Number 22, construction award to Carolina Civil Works, Inc. for the Eno River Lift Station and Lick Creek Lift Station valve replacement project. Number 23, amendment number 1 to professional engineering services contract number 18428 with Hazen and Sawyer for design of the Tier Quarry raw water storage and pumping facilities project. Number 28, ground lease agreement with Southside Revitalization Phase 3 and Phase 4 limited partnerships. All right, and then we have a few public hearings. That is our consent agenda. And I will now entertain a motion to accept the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded. Madam Clerk, will you please open the vote? Will you please close the vote? And report out.
The motion passes 7-0.
All right, thank you so much. So who's W6?
Mr. Mayor, I don't think my vote, I think, am I W6? I think.
It might be W6 tonight.
We have MI6, CIA, I don't know who W6 is. So.
We got
Colleagues, just give me a moment to make sure the vote is recorded properly. All right, so colleagues, we're going to do that vote again. If I could just have a hand vote. All in favor? All right, so it looks like it's unanimous. Thank you. So she's going to work on trying to update the system. If it doesn't work, we'll just continue. Madam Clerk, just give me a head nod or a text when it's ready.
Mr. Mayor, I kind of like calling him W6.
special agent.
Special ops. All right. So we're going to move to our public hearings. 7:24, we are moving. And the first up is item number 24, Consolidated Annexation, Clayton Road Townhomes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem Middleton, and honorable council members. Aaron Kane with the Planning Department. I'm happy to be here with you tonight. Before I begin, staff would like to state for the record that all Planning Department hearing items have been advertised and noticed in accordance with state and local law, and affidavits of all notices are on file in the Planning Department. A request for a utility extension agreement, voluntary annexation, and initial zoning map change has been received from Jared Edens for 5 parcels of land totaling 5.075 acres and located at 1019, 1023, 1025, 1027, and 1029 Clayton Road. This annexation petition is not contiguous to the primary corporate limits. The requested zoning map change to Planned Development Residential 6.897 is to allow up to 35 townhouse units. The properties are currently designated mixed neighborhood residential and suburban commercial on the place type map. The proposed PDR 6.897 zoning is generally consistent with the designated place type of mixed residential neighborhood, but inconsistent with suburban commercial. If the proposed zoning is approved, staff recommends a change to the place type of the one parcel currently designated suburban commercial to mixed residential neighborhood so that all parcels in the development are the same place type and consistent with the proposed zoning. The mixed residential neighborhood designation is consistent with the proposal as it introduces an additional housing type to an area that is primarily single-family residential. Thank you, and staff and the applicant are available to answer any questions.
Thank you so much. You've heard the staff report. Colleagues, are there any questions? Yes. And this is before opening to a public hearing.
Okay.
Great. Sure. Just a couple questions to get started. Can you talk to me about the rules generally around cemeteries and development? Because I know there's a cemetery on this premises. I know there's slated to not be development on that cemetery. I also know from my legal training that exhuming bodies is a whole thing. So I'm just curious what normally happens when we're zoning around cemeteries.
So the zoning usually will not affect the cemetery itself. If this case were to have a graphical development plan, most likely that graphic development plan would identify the location of the cemetery, and the building and parking envelope would not include that cemetery. This case has a textual development plan and not a graphic one, so we have no way of showing that. But when it gets to the site plan stage, that cemetery would be identified.
So are there rules in place that if you are developing and there's a cemetery that's pre-existing on the property that you have to leave it intact, or do we know the
You're getting a little bit out of my jurisdiction on this one. Do you know? Right, maybe.
Good evening, Sarah Young with the Planning Department. So the state has regulatory authority over cemeteries. We, in our local ordinance, do not have any regulations that pertain to cemeteries.
Do we know what the state, anything about that?
We do not.
Okay. I'm just curious. I feel like we hear, oh, we're going around the cemetery, but in my mind, that's probably required to go around the build around the cemetery.
Yeah, my understanding is that it is a pretty extensive process with the state to move grave sites, and so most folks opt not to do that.
Okay. Cool. That's not my only cemetery question, but I have a couple others. Can you just give me a little bit of an explanation on erosion control sediment basins, their function, and what we're looking for when we see an increase, what that means?
So a stormwater control measurement, or stormwater control measure, an SCM, otherwise known as a retention pond or various other terminology, the main purpose of that is to, the water flows to the stormwater control measure, the retention pond. It's going to capture that water and then slowly release it out. It's not going to completely stop the water from leaving the site, but it basically slows down that water so you don't have a greater rush or a greater speed of that water leaving the site. It's also meant to control sediment. Eventually, many of those stormwater control measures will start to fill up, and they will need to be dredged. That erosion will need that runoff will need to be removed at some point. But yeah, it's gonna. Now that's for a post-development situation. If you've got a construction situation, then you're going to have certain measures that need to be put in place to control runoff, control erosion, make sure it's not getting off the site, or try to control that as much as possible. You have something you want to add?
Yeah, so erosion control does some of what permanent stormwater control does, but not all of it. It mostly just slows things down. Oftentimes, folks will construct these temporary erosion control measures that then get converted into the permanent stormwater ones. Permanent stormwater ones tend to be larger, so sometimes the temporary measures are upsized already, knowing that they're going to be converted to the permanent ones. So they're related, but they can be separate.
Okay. And because this project has a sediment basin, erosion control sediment basin increase in size that was committed to, and so that is the post-construction, no, that is the during construction one. Well, what phase are we looking at?
If it's the erosion control basin, that is the temporary one during construction. So that's what's going to catch, the majority of the runoff from the exposed dirt, basically.
Okay, thank you. And then my last question, and I really apologize for not giving y'all a heads up about this question, but so it goes when we were preparing for both a work session and a meeting today, and I work another full-time job. So do you have a sense of how expensive it is to build an affordable unit in Durham or to build any residential unit in Durham? I did some research. I just want to know if you have a sense of it.
That is such a variable question, right? Like a residential unit is not a residential unit. The standard deviation of the cost of a unit from the median is going to be very great. Are you building a garden-style apartment? Are you building a taller building? Is it for sale? Is it for rent? What are the interior fixtures? What is the exterior? So much that goes into it varies. And as we get commitments for affordable units, one of the things we always ask of our applicants is to make them appear, especially from the outside, just like all the others.
Right.
So that's going to be a variable as to whether or not units are going to be affordable to be put into the particular development. I'm not sure if that answers. So do I know what like the average cost of building a unit in Durham is? One, I don't. Two, I don't know that that's necessarily a whole lot of helpful information because there's such a variance from what that mean is.
When we're getting these projects with commitments to build units, do the developers report a cost?
They do not.
Okay.
No, and the city does not put money into that. That is just simply a cross-subsidization that they are internalizing in order to be able to cover the difference in rent that they would be getting.
Okay, thank you. Those are all my questions. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
Thank you. And I'm just following up from one of the questions that my colleague asked. In reference to the site level plan, can you say whether or not, I'm trying to recall if the textual amendment approach was used for Fox Crossing versus a graphic?
So there were 2 Fox Crossings, and I believe Fox Crossing 2 used a textual development plan. I believe Fox Crossing 1 used a graphic because it was submitted prior to the changes that were made to the UDO to provide greater flexibility to submitting a textual development plan.
And so to that point, I just want to say for 2, I would like to figure out how to get, I guess, a little bit more nailed down or understand exactly, because what I'm hearing from the community is that the envelopes moved at the site level or moved from the proposed site plan at the site level admission, and then they changed it again. And so I just have a question about how we're reviewing it at the site level at this point because of Fox Crossing 2.
Sure. So generally, so for Fox Crossing 2, I believe that was a textual development plan. So we would have no building and parking envelope on a development plan for the site plan to follow, right? For Fox Crossing 1, being a graphic development plan, they would have been required by ordinance to have a building and parking envelope, and any activity for construction would have had to fall within that envelope on the site plan. I can't speak to the specifics right now. Maybe that's a conversation we can have online, but we can make sure that we can look at the site plan that was submitted and make sure that it followed the development plan. But that is something that, as a general rule, our site plan reviewers do look at the development plan and make sure what's being built, what's being proposed on the site plan is within the parking and building envelope that council approved on the development plan.
And who are those reviewers?
They're within the planning department, in the major development review group.
This is really rich information. I want to bring us back to this case. I'm learning a lot, though. I'm listening. I'm like, wow, this is interesting.
Well, I just want to say that it's relevant in that if we approve at the textual level, just noting like this site plan level, there's a little bit questionable activity going on.
I appreciate it. This is good information. Are there any other questions before I open it to a public hearing? All right, at this.
Mr. Mayor, if I might, I just want to, I'm not sure what my colleague has said, but we have routinely approved zoning cases with just textual before us. I don't want, I mean, probably hundreds. So I don't want to suggest that there's something amiss about whether it's graphic or textual. I just want to, for the record, reflect that I voted for many of them, as have all of us, actually. Thank you.
All right, yeah, thank you. Good information. We're gonna stay focused on this case, and then we're about to get really on this case, and I'm going to open this up to a public hearing, officially open it up, and I have very few signups here. Actually, I just have the applicant. Welcome, and welcome back, because you're here a lot.
Yeah.
So,
thank you.
how much time do you think you need?
I don't think I will need more than 5 minutes.
All right, Madam Clerk, could you please put 7 minutes on?
And thank you, Mr. Kane, for your presentation. I'm Neil Goshen, attorney with the Morningstar Law Group at 700 West Main Street in Durham. I'm new to this project, having just been engaged last week because the applicant is not able to be here tonight. So I'll do my best to fill in. This is a small residential project on just over 5 acres. The project is made up of 5 parcels. They are each roughly about an acre apiece. I bring this up because the requested rezoning is consistent with the place type map designation for 4 out of 5 parcels, but the northern parcel has a suburban commercial place type map designation. While I cannot speak specifically to why the designation is different for that parcel, I think if you zoom out on the place type map, you can see that it's at the edge of the suburban commercial place type designation. In other words, changing this 1 acre to residential is not going to materially alter the vision for this region on the place type map. There's still a large suburban commercial area designation left. Moreover, that particular parcel has an existing cemetery on it, which has been alluded to, and that cemetery is towards the front of that parcel, towards Clayton Road. We have a commitment that we will not be disturbing the cemetery, but I wanted to bring this up just to illustrate maybe one more reason why the suburban commercial place type map designation might not make sense for that individual parcel. With a less intense residential development, I think the long-term preservation of that cemetery will be more successful. Interestingly, if you do a survey of the existing housing stock in the area, you will find that there really are not a lot of townhomes right here. In fact, there is a mix of uses with manufacturing and flex space kind of to the west, there's a school to the south, and really a lot of single-family detached homes or housing in this area. So the addition of townhomes is going to add to the housing options for folks. We did receive a unanimous recommendation of approval from the Planning Commission, which I think you all know is pretty rare. But this is a 5-acre tract that by right could be developed with something like 11 single-family detached homes. So in my mind, I mean, this seems like a pretty straightforward and small, sensible project. Finally, I did just want to note that there have been no additional changes since the Planning Commission. A few items were added during the Planning Commission meeting, but those already are reflected in the packet. We've got the oversized SNEC ponds, which has been mentioned earlier. We have monetary contributions to DPS and the dedicated housing fund. We also are doing a 10-foot shared path along the frontage, along with road improvements right at the entrance, and there are various design commitments as well. I'm available to answer any questions you have. Happy to talk more about cemetery and SNEC ponds, and hope to have your support tonight for a small and sensible project. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. And all right. Yeah, this is the other person is, okay. So do I have any signups? Colleagues, any questions? Councilmember Cook?
All right, I have a whole list of questions, and I heard you say that you just got on this project a week ago. I hope you'll be able to answer at least some of them for me. So you heard my questions before to the staff, and the reason that I was asking that specifically about the price on development of a unit is that we are seeing commitments of actual units, of affordable units, and this, as you stated earlier, does not include any affordable units. It does have a small amount towards the Affordable Housing Fund, and I'm going to say that Commissioner Cutright, speaking on a different project, not on this one, but he did note how funds are a pretty inefficient system to meet the real needs of affordability in our community, given the cost that it takes to build an affordable unit, which is why I was doing some research on that last night, and what I was finding was that it can cost anywhere between $200,000 and $300,000 to build an affordable unit. One affordable unit out of these would be roughly in that 5% range that we've been seeing. So my question is, given the fact that there are no units that have been proffered, are we able to see a larger commitment in terms of the monetary donation that would actually make a difference in terms of affordability?
So, and I can't make any additional commitment to that tonight. I mean, I appreciate your question, where you're coming from. So, like I said, nothing about the project has changed since the Planning Commission. What you're referring to, the monetary contribution to the dedicated housing fund was something that the Planning Commission was aware of. They were also aware of the non-existence of actual affordable units in this project. This is at max 35 townhome units which is very difficult for a builder to underwrite affordable units in there because they can't really spread the cost of it across other, too many other units. So that makes it very difficult for a project this size to really offer to put units in there. As far as the monetary contribution, I think I mentioned the client is not here tonight, so I really can't make a commitment in that regard. But, like I said, the commitment is the same as it was at the Planning Commission, which ultimately did unanimously support this project.
Yeah, I did watch the Planning Commission. And also the applicant at that time stated that they did a survey and didn't find any rock, but that they would be doing more looking into whether they could commit to no blasting. So are you saying that you also can't make any commitments about blasting tonight either?
Right, so what we found they did some, I believe it's a ground penetrating radar test. They found that there was no rock bed within, at a 15-foot depth on the site. At least that's what their preliminary studies suggest. And so that strongly suggests that there will not be blasting at the site, but it's not something we can commit to because we don't have, we're not 100% certain that we're not going to hit rock, but there seems to be a very strong likelihood that there will not be blasting necessary for this project.
I'm just going to express, and it's not your fault, but it is a little frustrating because like those statements were made as like, we will follow up on this, and then you're coming here unable to offer any differences than what we saw at the Planning Commission. So it is a bit frustrating to hear that conversation at the Planning Commission and then to be having this conversation today. Just want to express that, again, not anyone's fault. The other question, and again, you might not have any information on this, but has there been any extra community involvement? Because I know at the time that the Planning Commission happened, there were only 3 attendees that came to the one community meeting, and Commissioner Kopak raised the issue, and I agree with him that this is a more rent-burdened and higher percentage of people of color area, and so I'm just wondering if there has been anybody that has reached out since that time or any more engagement.
Not to my knowledge. I mean, certainly not in the last week since I've been involved in the project, but I did ask this question to the applicant. I mean, there just has not been a lot of community engagement on this project. They had the community meeting, they had the public hearing, and I think you've seen the level of engagement there has been in the community.
And then I guess my final question is, and he talked a little bit more about it in the Planning Commission. You noted it a little bit here too, that there's sort of this northern space around where the cemetery is, that there's not going to be development. However, there's no commitment to any open space on the project, and I know it's not very many townhouses, but it is several acres, and so I think there would be space for that. I'm wondering if the cemetery is causing an issue with that, or if there's just...
So it's 5 acres, but there's no specific commitment to open space because the UDO already requires open space. So there will be open space with this development.
Okay. But no dedicated, any open space that's interactive or has any structural, anything?
Well, actually, so the UDO requires a certain amount of open space overall, and it requires a third of that amount to be, I'm going to say, active open space. So, that has amenities, so to speak, in it. So those would be required of any development. With this project, there's no specific commitment to it, but they will be there.
Okay.
Required to be there.
Those are all my questions. Thanks.
Colleagues, any other? Councilmember Rist.
I've got a couple questions, but I also want to pick up on my colleague, Councilmember Cook's question about affordability. So I hear what you're saying about with a smaller development, it's like 35 units, right? That there's less units to spread the cost of affordability across, because I'm also concerned about affordable housing, right? But are you suggesting there's some kind of economies of scale? Because it seems like if you do 100 units and 6% are affordable, that's 6 units, you got to spread the cost of those 6 over the 100, right? So whether it's 2 units spread across 35 or 4 across 70, are there economies of scale there, or isn't it the same?
So, there are economies of scale that go into it, but part of I think Mr. Kane was saying this earlier. What it costs to build a unit is kind of a nebulous question. It really depends on the site, and it also depends on the infrastructure that's there at the site. So, part of the let's say, new development process, when you're building a new subdivision, is the cost of bringing all the utilities to that site, is the cost of bringing every utility to each parcel, which that gets, I mean, that's going to change depending on every project. But there's no doubt about it that the larger the project is, the greater the ability is to spread that cost over more units. Part of this is a market analysis that takes place, right? So, for example, you could build a house on this property that you market for just $3 million or whatever. Does that mean it will sell? No, right? Like, so they have to balance all of these factors when they're looking at any type of development. Obviously, real estate investment, real estate development is a risky business, so there's a lot of factors that go into it. I'm not trying to answer your question, but I will say the larger a project is, the more likely you are able to underwrite some of the additional costs, or, for affordable housing. A smaller project makes it very difficult to do that.
Okay, thank you. My next question is about, so as I think you know, I'm on the Bike and Pedestrian Advisory Committee. I'm also on the MPO, right? So this idea of Vision Zero and safety for bikers, pedestrians, and drivers is critical. We just had two people die in motorcycle accidents in the last couple weeks, right? So I know that the builders committed to a 10-foot wide shared path along the frontage on Clayton Road, right? Mm-hmm. There was also a request from Transportation about another 10-foot shared use path along the west side of Clayton Road to avoid sidewalk gaps. They didn't choose to do that. I wonder if you could.
Yeah, right. So that is primarily because that's off-site. The right-of-way for the sidewalk doesn't exist. So in order to build that sidewalk, we'd have to acquire additional right-of-way, which is not something that the city, I don't think legally, is able to help if we were to make that type of commitment. Because we're not able to secure the right-of-way ahead of time, it would be, a little bit foolish to make a commitment to provide an improvement essentially on someone else's property without actually having the ability to do that. So, I understand the request, it's sensible, but the reason the request wasn't made is because the right-of-way today is insufficient to fill that gap, and there's no guarantee that we'll be able to get that right-of-way in order to build the sidewalk, which would then hamstring the project if we made the commitment, but those other property owners were unwilling to provide the right-of-way.
So fair enough on that then. There was also a request from BPAC, from their, the committee in BPAC that does review all these proposals, for an on-road protected bike lane using bollards along Clayton Road. How about that?
Yeah, so that is a request that comes up a lot from BPAC and has come up consistently. And I'm not sure why. I've had conversations with folks that are on BPAC. The on-street bike lane, whether it's bollard protected or whatever, is not favored by NCDOT. And in fact, that commitment, which used to be fairly standard to have 5 feet of additional pavement for a bike lane, that has gone away and instead is being replaced in favor of a 10-foot multi-use path. That's why it's 10 feet. The requirement under the UDO would be a 5-foot sidewalk. The 10-foot sidewalk allows for both bicycle and foot traffic, we'll call it that, pedestrian traffic. So the commitment they're asking for bike facility is already, there's already bike facility provided with the commitment we've made.
With the shared use path, you're saying?
That's exactly what it's for. That's what a shared use path is for. It's for sharing with pedestrians and bicycles.
Okay, again, as a member of BPAC, I want to make sure that those recommendations are carefully considered. So I appreciate that. I'll go back to BPAC and talk more with them about sort of, what they're, what they're looking for with this request for the bike facility.
Well, I would definitely encourage it because, like I said, this request comes up from BPAC often, and it's inconsistent with the guidance that developers or applicants are getting from NCDOT and from the city for that matter, because the on-street bike lane is just not favored any longer. And so, I don't know, for quite some time now, we've been doing a 10-foot side path instead to accommodate both the bicycle and pedestrian traffic.
Thank you.
All right. Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. What is the amount of the contribution to the dedicated housing fund?
$35,000.
And what's the contribution to the Durham Public Schools?
$5,000.
What are the anticipated imperfect science, but anticipated price point to the units?
Yeah, so looking at the market as it is today, if they were building these today, they believe they could deliver these in the 299,000 range.
For sale.
For sale, that's right.
Right. Really quickly, I'm going to support this project. It's a relatively small project, relatively small footprint. When I say relatively to what normally comes before us, I'm going to trust the expertise on the Planning Commission on this one. I think they got it right. I think their comments were on point in terms of impact, in terms of environment, different form of housing in the area as well. Yeah, I think they got this one right. I'm going to trust their expertise. I recommend we do the same.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Councilmember Javier.
Thank you. Just very quickly, I will also be supporting this project. I think that we've seen similar, anytime we get into that 50 unit or less, there's been several in the last year, which we want. They're often smaller developers. We've seen a number of, local first-time projects come before us with this council since December, and I don't think, if I'm not mistaken, I don't think any of them have been able to pull off an actual unit. All of them have been able to contribute to the fund, and I think that part of that issue is exactly what you have named, Mr. Ghosh, is just harder to make it work when we're not dealing with, several hundred units. So my vote of yes is consistent with some of the other kind of smaller 50 and under. I think there was one near the, off Hillendale, maybe off of.
Scott Harmon did one.
Yeah, and there's one, the Coal Mill, and then the Riverside Graduate. There's been a number of those that we've seen this past year. I don't know any of them. I don't think any of them are your case because they were small enough that they just came before council. So it's consistent with what this council has approved to date, knowing that it is harder. And also, we want some of these smaller developers and smaller sites to come in. We don't want kind of get fissioned if we don't want the really big ones, but then we also don't want the small ones because we can't get units. I mean, it just ends up being that we don't want anything. So I will be supporting it. Thank you.
Can you all hear us out there?
Oh, I can.
Okay. If we could have the volume turned up a little bit. I thought it was just my ears needed ear cleaning or something, but I can't really hear you. Oh, that's much better. It's like magic. Thank you all. Little reverb. All right. Colleagues, are there any other comments? All right. I think this is a really good project. I do have a question for staff. Could you come up for a second? Okay. What's the average home cost right now in Durham, or in our metro area?
Excuse me, if I'm remembering correctly, I believe it's a little north of $400,000.
About 425?
Oh, yeah, I want to say I saw 416 was the most recent, but it's in that low 400s right now.
Thank you. What's the going rate if these were going to get today again?
299,000 is what they were thinking they would be able to deliver these at today.
For sale?
For sale, right.
Good. I think this is a great project. I look forward to supporting it. I like that it's manageable. I also want to make sure that, something I want, I'll make a comment after we get out of closed session just to stay germane to the topic. Thank you so much. All right. If there are no other comments, then I will declare this public hearing closed and back before the council. All right, colleagues, I've heard your comments. I will entertain a motion to adopt an ordinance annexing Clayton Road townhouses into the city of Durham and to authorize the city manager to enter into a utility extension agreement with Eden's Investments Incorporated.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded. We will take a vote by hand. Oh no, we're ready? Okay. It's been moved and properly seconded. Madam Clerk, please open the vote. Please close the vote.
Yeah, no, my thing is not working.
The motion passes.
5-2.
Oh, your clicker didn't work?
I'm sorry, I voted yes, but yeah, my thing's not
Okay,
working.
then it's got a problem.
Yeah, it's 5-2.
All right, so we'll go back to hand votes. But Madam Clerk, do you have that recorded?
5-2,
5-2.
with Cook and Freeman voting no.
All right, thank you so much. And I'll now also entertain a motion to adopt an ordinance amending the Unified Development Ordinance by taking property out of residential suburban 20 and Falls Jordan Lake Watershed Protection District B county jurisdiction and establishing the same as planned development residential 6.897 and Falls Jordan Lake Watershed Protection District B city jurisdiction.
Moved as read.
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded. All in favor, please show by raising your hand. All opposed?
Motion passes 5-2, with council members Cook and Freeman voting no.
Thank you. Lastly, I'll entertain a motion to adopt a consistency statement as required by North Carolina General Statute Section 160D-605.
Move to adopt consistency.
Second.
Been moved and properly seconded. Madam Clerk, I'm sorry, all in favor, please show by raising your hand.
The motion passes 7-0.
Thank you so much. I was going to make a comment that, I think that as we are seeing these cases come forward, just, being able to see all of the components, what it takes to create it and comparing it to just the market in this current day, the more information, the better. It'll be very helpful. And I'm saying this just out into the universe of developers as you all are bringing projects to us, bring your best foot forward. And we could, be able to make those sound decisions without having to dig too deep. But that was a really easy case to follow in looking into that information. So thank you. I will now move on to item 25.
Excuse me. Mayor Williams, Mayor Pro Tem Middleton, and honorable council members. A request for a zoning map change has been received from Kelly Carrion of 54 Friends, LLC, for one parcel of land totaling 0.582 acres and located at 1414 NC Highway 54. The current zoning is residential suburban 20. The applicant proposes to change this designation to office and institutional with a textual development plan to allow up to 6,000 square feet of non-residential building space. The property is currently designated neighborhood services on the place type map. The proposed office and institutional with a textual development plan zoning is generally consistent with the designated place type. Thank you, and staff and the applicant are available to answer questions.
Thank you. You've heard the staff report. Colleagues, are there any questions for staff? Yes. Councilmember Cook.
Hello. Okay.
Hey.
And this is, again, my apologies for not looking this up, but you said it was generally consistent with the place type map. Wouldn't that depend on the usage of the building?
Yes, and I believe in the development plan it talks about it being limited to office uses. And generally in office and institutional, the office uses that are the ones that are permitted in that zoning district would generally be looking for what we're looking for in neighborhood services.
Okay. I have a couple more. I'm just going to take some notes.
Oh, I know.
And what does this designation allow for at its max? Because there was some talk about that 6,000 square feet was the maximum, and that was, I assume, a restriction that the developer put on themselves. But
correct.
What is allowed? Is there a maximum square footage allowed by max in this?
You mean if they didn't have the development plan and they were just going to office and institutional without a development plan, without a restriction, what would be the maximum?
Yes, if you were already zoned for this, would you have any restrictions in terms of square footage?
In terms of square footage, Yes and no. So in terms of square footage, no, we don't have a something in the UDO, but you would be limited for height, you would be limited for building coverage, you would have certain other restrictions that would essentially limit the amount of square footage your building could be, but I don't believe we have a per se maximum square footage.
Thank you. And then there was also a little bit about that there had been some designated for recreation and open space because it was a potential floodplain, and I'm wondering if you could just talk about the correlation between the two of those.
So generally on our place type map, we have tried as much as possible to align the recreation and open space place type where it applies to where we have known floodplains of the most recent mapping. And so that just really provides an identification for, as developers are going in, or the general public or yourselves as elected officials, where we would like to try to avoid having, development having impervious surface and disturbance in those areas.
Okay, and is that just due to a security nature? Is it due to an environmental nature? Like, is there a reason behind that?
A reason behind having the recreation and open space designation on floodplains?
Yes.
Yeah, so because floodplains, we do not prohibit development in the floodplain. We have pretty big restrictions on that development, and so we're really looking for that in an ideal world where everything would be built exactly the way our place type is. We wouldn't have development in those areas because of the environmental damage that would do.
Okay, it is environmental. Okay, thank you. Those are my questions.
All right, at this time, I'll declare this a public hearing. And I have one sign up, the applicant, Mr. Neil Ghosh. Welcome back. How much time do you think you need?
5 minutes.
Madam Clerk, please put 7 minutes on the clock.
And thank you, Mr. Kane, again for your presentation. This is again Neil Ghosh, attorney at the Morningstar Law Group, 700 West Main Street in Durham. Unlike the last one, I've been with this project since the beginning, so I know a little bit about it. And this is an even smaller project. I think the best way to describe this request is to go into a little bit of the story of this property. The property was acquired by my client, which is a small business owner, who was looking to establish their office in this location. When they acquired the property, there was a derelict residential structure on the property. In fact, it was the subject of notices of violation from neighborhood improvement services for various issues. So that's what they inherited. Kind of their first act as the new owner of this property was to resolve those citations. Obviously, they wanted to do that in the most cost-effective way possible, and in this case, it actually meant demolishing the existing structure, which was so far in disrepair and also needed asbestos abatement. So that's what they did, and there are no longer any outstanding NIS citations on the property, nor is the structure on the property any longer. Obviously, that was a little bit of a setback for them, but they are interested in establishing their office here, which is why we're moving forward with the rezoning. The requested zoning here is, well, I think the request is straightforward. It's for O&I. The site is about half an acre. It can basically fit one structure on it. Not that that's technically a requirement, but it's a small parcel that would, if you were establishing an office there, you could basically fit one building on there. It has frontage on Highway 54 and Dresden Drive. This is actually a very busy segment of 54, and so NCDOT informed us that access will have to be only from Dresden Drive, which is reflected in our zoning commitments. The OI zoning district, which we've requested, is fairly limited in what's allowed to begin with. Basically, the district allows residential uses and office uses, but not really a whole lot of retail or services. We have taken it a step further and eliminated some more uses, specifically residential and drive-throughs. Obviously, the owner wants to use it as an office, but it also makes sense to preserve at least some flexibility in the zoning for potential future uses. We did have 2 community meetings, and we also have had further correspondence with Mr. Barefoot, who is our direct neighbor to the north. In fact, it was his concern that led us to add a zoning commitment to beef up the stormwater management for the site. Again, the project received a unanimous recommendation of approval from the Planning Commission. I think it's a small, straightforward office project on a corridor where you kind of see that thing, that type of thing already. Just down the street, there's a dry cleaners and then like a realtor's office. They're all right here, fronting Highway 54. So I'm available to answer any questions you have. Thank you for your time tonight. Look forward to it.
Thank you so much. You've heard the report. I don't have any signups from any other speakers. So, colleagues, are there any other questions?
Okay, I have some questions for you, Attorney Ghosh. You just had stated that y'all had beefed up the stormwater management. There were some comments in the Planning Commission requests for a 100-year storm as opposed to, I think y'all had a 25-year. And you had noted some difficulties in increasing from the 25. Could you just talk a little bit more about, y'all have not increased from that, is that correct?
No, we have not. We're sticking with 25-year. I mean, that's really an engineering problem. It's a small site. They got to fit a building, they got to fit parking, they got to fit utilities, that type of thing, and the infrastructure, including the stormwater. We just don't know that there's enough space to handle the 100-year storm. There's nothing, I mean, we're just not at that level of engineering. So, I mean, any kind of stormwater management on this site, which we've beefed up already over what the UDO required, is well in excess of what was there previously, which was nothing, right? It was a single-family home, didn't have any kind of stormwater controls. And so our neighbor to the north who had concerns about flooding, that's understandable. However, what they were experiencing was the straight runoff there was no treatment, no attempt even to control that. So any kind of new development here, whether we beefed up the stormwater control measures, is actually going to result in an improvement over that situation. But we did go up to the 25-year storm. The 100-year storm, it could be possible. It's just not something that we're really comfortable committing to because we just don't have that level of engineering figured out yet.
Gotcha. Okay, and then at the Planning Commission, you talked about that you would have a more detailed conversation with your client regarding some of BPAC's specific asks.
Yeah, I sure did. BPAC had several, comments that are, well, they're a little bit difficult for us to understand, some of them. So I can just go through them if that makes sense.
That's fine, that'd be great, yeah.
So there was one about building raised crosswalks across any car access point to keep pedestrians at the level of the sidewalk. Mm-hmm. We don't have any access, so there's already existing sidewalk on 54. We don't have any access from 54, so there's not going to be any driveways there. Dresden Drive is currently developed. It's got sidewalk on the other side of Dresden Drive. It's unclear to me whether there's actually going to be sidewalk on this side, and if there is, it would only be on our parcel, so just that depth. There would be a driveway there, and we're comfortable having, keeping the elevation the same there if there is sidewalk, but I don't know that there will be. There isn't sidewalk on that side of Dresden to begin with.
Okay.
The next request was about a 12-foot wide multi-use path connect to the 10-foot wide multi-use path on Dresden Drive. So we've not made a commitment. I mean, the path already exists, and we've not made a commitment to make it larger.
It looks like there's a commitment there to 5 feet of additional right-of-way, right?
For Highway 54, that's correct, yeah.
And isn't that what the request is? No, you're right, it's Dresden Road, it's for the.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. So some of these were, the way that they were written was a little bit just confusing about which street it applies to. But let me put it this way. We are dedicating 5 feet of additional right-of-way on 54, and we are not, we've not made any commitments that would affect what's happening on 54, which is, a well-traveled road as it is. But the commitment to include a 5-foot buffer between Dresden Drive roadway and the new multi-use path, I mean, we did not make that commitment. There is a multi-use path there already.
Wait, I'm sorry, I thought you said there was the
On 54, there.
On 54, but not on Dresden, on the other side of Dresden.
On the other side of Dresden, yeah, right. So we don't have that's what I'm saying. We can't buffer from it. It's
Right.
on the other side.
Following you.
Yeah. And they did request bicycle parking that's visible to 54. I think that was, I'm guessing, was specific to kind of the multi-use path itself. We haven't made that commitment. We're not touching that path that's on 54 that exists already. So this site doesn't have any bicycle parking requirement given its size, so we've not made a commitment for that. And native street trees along 54. I don't actually recall having that conversation with my client. I don't know why that would be a problem, but the high visibility crosswalk across Dresden Drive, unclear to me that there is going to be a crosswalk on Dresden Drive. So we didn't make that commitment either. So I think a lot of these commitments are really looking at making 54 and this experience for bicyclists and pedestrians safer, which is a laudable goal, but it's just, there's so many items that are outside of our control as the applicant just on that corner parcel to address these things, and they're not necessarily in line with what our understanding is. The city has plans to widen 54, I believe, which is why they are asking for, or whether it's the city or NCDOT, but it's why they're asking for right-of-way, additional right-of-way there. So, the sidewalk is actually relatively new in front of this parcel. I think it was put in like 2019 or something like that. So, we've not really made any kind of commitment to disrupt what's already there. We have made a commitment to dedicate the additional 5 feet of right-of-way, and I assume that there would be plans in the future where they're going to rip all that stuff up anyway.
Okay. My last question is going to be a deep dive legal question, so bear with me.
Actually, before you can just.
Oh, yeah, please
I'm
go
glad
ahead.
you picked up, Councilmember Cook, on the BPAC comments. Again, that's something I'm going to raise every time. On the issue of the crosswalk, so you're right, there's no existing crosswalk there, but I guess that request is to have a crosswalk across Dresden to connect to the sidewalk that's on the other side, right?
Yeah, no, I understand what the request is. I'm not sure that a crosswalk across Dresden Drive is going to be allowed. I mean, this is right on Highway 54. This isn't, like, I don't know that that is a pedestrian movement that is being encouraged, right? So I'm not making a commitment to do a crosswalk there. However, if it comes up at the time of site plan that the city wants a striped crosswalk there, that's not an issue. But to commit to it now, I think, is suggesting that that is something the city wants. It's not my understanding. I understand that it was a suggestion from BPAC, but
because the sidewalk continues down 54, right? So
oh yeah, the sidewalk on the other side of Dresden. I'm sorry. The sidewalk across Dresden on 54, same side, that had been there for a while. The new sidewalk is actually the one in front of our parcel. That's was added in like 2019, I believe. So but that other sidewalk has been there for a while. You are correct.
Down 54, exactly.
Down 54. Yeah. That's been there for a while.
And that's the whole issue is connectivity, right? So,
I mean, one would assume that's what the sidewalk is for, ultimately, but it's not necessarily safe to cross. There are movements you don't necessarily want to encourage, even though they might be necessary for people to make from time to time.
I mean, I think that's why the request is there so you could, if you wanted to continue walking down 54, there'd be a safe way to do that. So, but I appreciate it. If it comes up in the site plan, I hope you'll consider that.
Well, yeah, if it comes up in site plan, then we'll do it. But to make the commitment now, I don't think we can because we don't know that that's what the city wants.
Just real quick, let me close this public hearing officially. And so I'm declaring the public hearing closed at this time.
If I could, to address the crosswalk issue across Dresden Drive, the issue is that on the west side, the ramp, the ADA ramp, does not line up with the ramp on the east side. And so you'd have a diagonal crosswalk that would essentially start putting you out in the lane of traffic. That crosswalk on the west side looks like it's an older one, the way we used to do things. The one on the east side is new school, that's old school. They don't line up well, and so we would not want that crosswalk the way it's currently configured. Now, should NCDOT at some point, I know they have plans to eventually widen that portion of NC 54, that will all get straightened out once that's widened and we can have a crosswalk that's much safer.
Thanks. I didn't recognize that was the issue, but Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Those ADA ramps do not line up.
Great, legal question. Okay, so the manager of the LLC, who is also the applicant, is using this address as the manager address for the LLC on the Secretary of State website. But it's neither the registered agent nor the primary office. Is that strange?
I have no idea. I mean,
Well, Morningstar is also listed as the representative on, I mean, y'all are also on there as a point of contact.
For the entity?
On this, yeah.
Yeah.
For the LLC.
I'm not a corporate attorney at Morningstar Law Group. We definitely do entity formation. I'm not even sure what your question is.
I mean, to me, it is strange, and I just am curious about it because I was looking at the Secretary of State website. It's strange to me that then the 1414 North Carolina Highway 54 is listed as the manager's address for the LLC. The deed is in the LLC's name, not the manager's name. I just thought it was interesting that the applicant, Kelly Carrion, has this address listed as her managerial address for the LLC. And we're going through this rezoning and she doesn't own it.
To my knowledge, there's no mail receptacle there.
Right.
There's no building there. I don't.
Okay. No. I just was wondering if you had any information since it was a Morningstar.
It's a fair question, but I assure you that's not what I do.
I also don't know, and I also understand because I do housing and I don't know. So that was just an interesting question that I had. Thank you, that's all.
Councilmember Baker.
I think these BPAC questions bring up some interesting conversation because I really don't like seeing our zoning map change reports with lots of BPAC recommendations and responses to them that say no commitment has been made to address this request. And I think it's a combination of factors here. BPAC is looking at a site and is making sort of judgment calls based on knowledge of best practices and I don't want to ask them to be less bold because I want them to be bold in their recommendations. I also want to balance that with what's realistic. And there are a number of different things here. Some of these are going to be addressed at the site plan stage. Some of these are issues of we are abutting NCDOT right of way, and there's just a lot of questions, and NCDOT doesn't follow design best practices. So I'm just wrestling a little bit with that. Carl, I'm looking at you because you're our BPAC liaison. So maybe just a conversation to have with BPAC and see what they need to help so that we can make sure that they've got the resources that they need to be fully informed, or maybe there's another way of providing recommendations, or they get some staff support or whatever might be necessary, because I would like to eventually get to a point where either we know some of these things are going to happen because they are embedded in our design standards, or we know what the priority is, or we know that there are one or two recommendations that we really need to go to bat for, even if an applicant doesn't want to do them. So just wanted to lay that out there, because I do think that these are really important, that these recommendations are really important, and I want us to take them seriously. Councilmember Cook, I think about that question a lot, about in terms of who owns the property. Sometimes there's a pending sale, LLC, sometimes, typically has like a corporate owner that owns many LLCs, and I like to know that information. And I have seen other communities do provide information in different sorts of ways. I think that would be something that would be interesting to explore, is being fully informed about who we're dealing with, and I think that can help inform the conversation. So I think this is a small case. I'll be supporting it. Planning Commission supported it unanimously, so I'll follow their lead on this one. Thank you.
Go ahead. Mr. Baker, I appreciate your responding to that. Yeah, I think what's going on here is in part what we want from our advisory commissions, right? So BPAC is like, they're not thinking necessarily about what makes the best site plan or the most, they're thinking about what's connectivity like for bikers and pedestrians. That's what their screen is. And so the folks that review every application for rezoning are looking at exactly what does this do for our bike and pedestrian network, right? So that's what they're, but I think your question's good, and maybe to sort of figure out, are there some things we need to really hone in on that are absolutes or must-haves or something. But I think they're trying to do what we all want to do, is create a better connectivity for bikers and pedestrians.
All right, thank you so much. I just had a quick question for staff as well, more of a practical question. And this is very general, but how much, when it comes to infrastructure, I'm all for, getting, no offense to you all applicants or developers out there, but I'm all for getting out of the builder at the moment, at the time, as much as we can. But in reality, how much of this infrastructure building should we consider on the city side as well? From a practical sense, like what are some common practices that you see?
So, I mean, if you're that's getting
really
into
big question.
Policy issues and budget issues that I'm not, and it's kind of like the how much does it cost to build a house question, right? It's very site specific. If you've got a flat piece of land with not a lot of right-of-way issues, it's pretty easy to build a sidewalk. If you've got topography issues, if you've got land ownership issues, that becomes very difficult. And what you thought was a $500,000 sidewalk project becomes a $12 million sidewalk project pretty quickly. And we're all well aware of when those have happened. We do have UDO requirements for building sidewalks and bicycle facilities, shared use paths, and so forth. That we do require those at site plan, or we get them committed during the zoning. Bigger picture issues do become state and city.
Thank you. I asked that question partially rhetorically and partially out of curiosity, simply because the implications of trying to enforce all of the preferential additions, I would call them. It's great to get them while we can, but my worry is the implication is the cost is pushed off to the person at the end of the line, and I just want to make sure that as we're considering infrastructure, hopefully in the future we position the city to be. We position ourselves well enough to be more of a partner in development rather than just pushing it off to someone or an entity where we have no control over the outcome on the resident of whoever may be living in that place or utilizing that space. And we can't say we want affordable housing or we want affordable anything when we're having all of these upfront things, and then we push it to the end, and the builder or whoever is responsible says, now, because of everything I had to do, I'm pushing it off to you, resident, and now we said in the beginning we want affordable housing, but we don't get it. So I'm asking that question and stating that just to shape, the conversation and look at both ends of it. So thank you.
Mr. Mayor, on that, I mean, to be clear, like on this case, for example, I mean, roads are already there, right? Water, sewer, already. So the public's got a big investment. Existing sidewalks are there. So I think we're just asking the development communities to be part of that. I mean, we talk about this almost every case, right? So I think we're trying to balance that, what the private developers can do in addition to what the public has and will do.
No, totally. I think this was another case where it was a great exemplar of, what's available to us as far as information, and I looked at the amount of requests from the comments they've had, and I'm thinking, how would those comments have been shaped if everyone started out at the initial phase of trying to develop a particular site, So rather than things happening in isolation, but I have some ideas for that coming up in the future. where we can, as we're looking at developing sites or building communities, rather than everything being in succession, we could have more of a planning, upfront planning stage.
Just a quick question. I know you closed the meeting. I just want to make sure that you state or say, or at least let us know that there's no one signed up to speak. This is a public hearing. And, you know, I think we've been clear that folks needed, or folks in the room can sign up to speak and folks online cannot. But you want to make sure that people understand it's a public hearing. They should be able to just...
Yeah, I stated it. I've been just really trying to be really consistent with the rules. I didn't have anyone signed up, so I stated no one signed up, and you know, we try to be consistent as much as possible. All right. So I don't have any other comments. We will now entertain our motions. All right, motion one, I'll entertain a motion to adopt an ordinance amending the Unified Development Ordinance by taking property out of residential suburban 20 and Falls Jordan Watershed Protection Overlay District B and establishing the same as office and institutional with the textual development plan and Falls Jordan Watershed Protection Overlay District B.
So moved.
It's been moved and properly seconded. All in favor, please show by raising your hand. All right.
The motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. And motion two, I'll entertain a motion to adopt a consistency statement as required by North Carolina General Statute, Section 160D-605.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded. Please show by raising your hand if you're in favor. All opposed.
Thank you. The motion passes 7-0.
Thank you so much. All right, and what time is it? 8:30. All right, let's see if we can get through this one before having to take a break, but if not, we'll take a break at 9 o'clock. And the next one is item number 26. This is the last public hearing. Mr. King.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and honorable council members. A request for a utility extension agreement, voluntary annexation, and initial zoning map change has been received from Erica Latham of MI Homes of Raleigh, LLC, for one parcel of land totaling 13.22 acres and located at 433 Sharon Road. This annexation petition is for a contiguous annexation of the primary corporate limits to allow up to 100 townhouses and accessory uses. The properties are currently designated mixed residential neighborhood on the place type map. The proposed planned development residential 7.698 zoning is generally consistent with the designated place type. If the proposed zoning is approved, there will be no change to the place type designation. Thank you, and staff and the applicant are available for any questions.
Thank you. Before opening to public hearing, colleagues, are there any questions? All right. Mayor Pro Tem, if you can take over. And Councilmember Cook, go ahead.
Thank you. I have several questions. This is going to be
Do my best.
on comprehensive plan consistency and how we make determinations around it.
Sure.
So how do we choose the policies to determine the comprehensive plan consistency? So when we get that consistency statement, it does not include all of the things that are relevant to the sections in the comprehensive plan. So for example, I think this one has like item 33 and then it jumps to 37. It includes ones that on our consistency statement are listed as not applicable. But I'm wondering how we determine which ones get skipped over from the comprehensive plan. If some of them are not applicable anyway, why do they not all get on there?
So there's, gosh, 100, are there 200? There's it's a little over 200 policies in the comprehensive plan. In the comprehensive plan, you'll notice that many of them are signaled with a D, which stands for development.
Oh, I've got questions about that too. Great.
Yeah.
Okay, yep. Uh-huh.
So those are the ones that we targeted for inclusion in our staff reports and reviewing those policies for whether or not applications are consistent with those. And I believe for those it's 32, 33, somewhere around there.
So not all of those ones are included. And also and then there are other ones that are included, there are other ones that are included that don't have that demarcation.
Okay.
So I mean, my reading of it, that's not consistent. So how do we choose?
That happened around the time that I started here. We went through a process internally with staff in looking at which policies were most applicable to these. And again, I thought we were doing the ones with Ds. If we miss some, then we'll go back and look at that. But if there are policies that we're not including that you'd like to see included, certainly let us know which ones those are, and we can take an assessment of that.
Thank you. Yeah, I had a minor computer malfunction earlier, which my IT department did a great job in restarting, but I had all my tabs open, including all of the items next to this checklist. But I'm also curious, I mean, I'm hearing you say that the plan was sort of to put the ones that were demarcated as the more important on there. When we get our checklist, though, we don't see that. They're not weighted any differently than any of the other policies that are on that list. Is that true?
What do you mean by weighted?
Well, I mean, if we've got this comprehensive plan and it shows that, now I can't remember off the top of my head, but if it says that item 40 is a really important one, and then you've given us 39, 40, and 41, and so when we're looking at the consistency statement, we only see, applicant meets 5 of 10, but what we don't see is that the 5 that are not met were all designated as more important. Like they don't get any different weight depending on that designation.
We have not, as we go through as staff to determine whether a project is consistent with the policies or not, we don't weight one policy over another. That's kind of a policy direction that you all would take, and as to which policies you all feel are more important. We don't make a judgment on that.
Totally, yeah. I mean, to me, it's just is a little bit difficult because we're given that the comprehensive plan consistency statement as part of our documentation, and there's several attachments. So we're looking through quite a bit of documentation before we get started on these zoning projects, and. Yeah, I mean, it's just a little bit hard to then make a value call if every time I feel like I have to go back to the comprehensive plan and look at all of the policies that were not included. So I'm struggling because I do want to be consistent with the comprehensive plan, and I've heard my colleagues up here talk about, oh, it meets this number or this number, we have a clear majority or something like this, and I'm concerned that if we aren't weighting them appropriately, or if we maybe aren't including all of the ones that should be included, that we're getting numbers that don't make sense. Sure. It's not like anything that we can solve tonight. I was just curious about it. I'll keep looking.
So when you have that attachment in your packet, always the same policies for every case.
Okay, that is helpful.
We're not changing the policies. Now, some might not be applicable in one case and are applicable in another. For example, there are policies. There you go. There are policies regarding mobile home parks, right? Well, if the site is not a mobile home park, then that policy doesn't apply.
Right.
There are certain policies regarding floodplains or greenways. If there's no planned greenway or no floodplain on the site, that policy does not apply, but another project, it may apply because it has a greenway and or floodplain. But yeah, the list of 32, 33, 34 policies are the same for every case that you see. We don't change that up.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, and for folks watching, I want to Our comprehensive plan, I've talked about this before, but this is a plan that this board adopted prior to my sitting on it in October of 2023. It's with input from the Durham community and lots of work with our staff about what we want to see in terms of development for Durham. And so when we're looking at consistency statements, we're looking to see if the applications that we're getting are consistent with these community-led goals for the development of Durham. So this is the reason for my questions, and I did not know that all, the lists were all the same, so that is interesting, and I'm going to look through because I do think that they're, oh, are you about to tell me they're not the same?
Well, okay, so the main part is the same. Sarah reminded me that there are, at the very bottom of that attachment, there's place type policies, and so we only are bringing you those for which are applicable to that place type, right? So if it's a project that's in a mixed residential neighborhood place type, we're not giving you an analysis of the general industrial place type policy.
Right.
So that is the difference. There will be on the place type policies, they will be specific and applicable to that particular place type, but the long list before you get to that, they're always the same.
Right, okay, because I got tripped up because what I was seeing was that we were skipping over ones that were relevant to the type of zoning we were looking at. But what you're saying is that if we get a specific type of zoning, we're getting the same list of however many policies each time. Yes. The list might change depending on the type of.
Yeah, you'll see at the bottom of that attachment, there's a separate box that says place type policies. Mm-hmm. Those will change based on the place type for which the application is being made. The rest, everything before that, the policies are always the same. Their applicability may differ, but we're giving you the same policies every time.
Okay, and then this is actually onto the talking about whether or not it's consistent with its designation. Do y'all have a specific methodology that you use to determine that? Because, I mean, I'm reading these definitions, and I do think that they're subjective. And so when y'all make a recommendation or you say that this is generally consistent, do you have a methodology? Is there a checklist for these various things? How are we coming up with, is it vibe check? Like, how are we coming up with general consistency?
Right, so general consistency is, what we're doing is we're looking at the application, we're looking at the place type. There's not a checklist, right? There's Transit Opportunity Area has 5 specific place type policies. The rest of them are 2, maybe 1. Some of them have 0. So it's hard for us to, have a checklist or a scoring mechanism or anything like that. It is rather subjective. And we're looking to see if what they're asking for is, again, basically meets the intent of the policies. Are they, again, in general, getting at what is being asked for in the policies?
Yeah, vibe check. It's on vibes. Okay.
Yeah.
So specifically this one, mixed residential neighborhood that's coming out for this project, to bring it back to relevance. Do we compare, I know that this is one that we look at the surrounding areas to determine if there is diversity in types of housing. Do we look at approved developments and current developments, or do we only look at structures that are already existing?
We look at approved, we do not look at proposed developments, we do look at approved developments. So if there is if we have an application and it's for townhouses in a predominantly single-family area, but there's also 3 nearby approved but not yet constructed townhouses developments, we would note that. Okay. Or we would do our best to note that, yeah.
Let me chime in real quick. Councilmember Cook, I appreciate this and this deep dive. I want to make sure we can get to the case.
This is relevant to the case. I'm about to ask a very case-specific question. So I want to make sure that we are taking advantage of these resources as well, just so we're not prolonging this part of the process as well. But go ahead. Yeah, I'm just going to push back about that a little bit, because I do think that's important that it's in public, because this is a comprehensive plan. This is the public's goal for Durham, and we're getting recommendations for stuff. That stuff is going onto our public agenda, and when we see something that says this is consistent, we need to know what that means.
Oh,
how that was come up.
Totally got it. I just want to make sure we're utilizing the resource person so that we won't have to prolong as much. But go ahead.
So at the Planning Commission meeting on this specific project, it was stated that there were no townhouses in the surrounding areas, but there are actually quite a few developments that have already been approved and some are in construction that do have townhouses.
Okay.
And so I'm just wondering where that, it seems like there's a little bit of a divide there.
There may have been. We'll make sure to keep a better track of that going forward.
Okay. Thank you. Those are all my questions. Thank you for letting me grill you. Sorry. All right. Thank you.
Okay, all right. And we're going to get on to the case. Just so we can make sure we're all clear about what the conversation is here. And I'm responsible for this sometimes too. I like to ask questions to make sure that whoever is listening and paying attention can understand what and why we're asking it. On the other side of that, each council member is given contact information to the resource folks that are for each agenda item. And I will say to the council, I'm going to encourage you to do your community outreach to our constituents, meet with community members so that we can have these engagements. This does not have to be the only venue that we're engaging. So I want to be respectful to everyone's time. I want to make sure we're using all of the resources. And I also want to encourage being able to expose the process to help you also, public, understand how we get to the decisions that we make. So I just want to make sure that all of that is clear. It's not Councilmember Cook or anyone else. It's not censoring you, but also at the same time making sure we're utilizing all of our resources. Now we're going to get to the case here, and I'm going to declare this an open public hearing, and I will invite the applicant up. How much time do you think you need?
I'm gonna say like 10 minutes.
Madam Clerk, please put 12 minutes on.
And thank you again, Mr. Kane, for your presentation. Last one, I'm still Neil Ghosh, attorney with the Morningstar Law Group at 700 West Main Street in Durham. To close out our trio tonight, we've yet another small project, but this time it's on about 13 acres, and it is a residential project. Let's start first with considering the place type map, which is mixed residential neighborhood for this piece of property. We are only proposing one housing type, which is townhomes, but the immediate surrounding area currently offers only one housing type, which is single family detached. That's what is in both Sharon Farms to our east and the Brightwood Trails to our south. Directly to our west is the 509 Sharon Road project, which will be about 40 townhomes on about 5 acres. So even between the two projects, this one and 509 Sharon, we're looking at townhomes on just under 20 acres, which is an important threshold in the comp plan because the comp plan provides guidance that, under 20 acres, well, I should say 20 acres to 50 acres, the guidance is that there should be at least 2 housing types. Here we have under 20 acres and it's all one housing type. In this case, townhomes, which is the housing type which is missing from this general area. I also want to talk about the property a little bit. The current owner has owned the property since 1967, so it's a long time. This is a 13-acre property with one house on it. I think we all can agree that that is an inefficient use of property. Interestingly, the property is today mostly devoid of trees. This is essentially a cleared site. Also, the adjacent properties on 3 sides of this parcel are already annexed into the city limits. This project will reduce the size of an existing jurisdictional donut hole. And these factors together make this a prime location for residential development today. The site has frontage on Sharon Road and on Pembroke Drive to the south. The site plan for the community to the west shows another road stubbing to this property. So there will be 3 points of access on this or to this property, which will provide greater connectivity not only for vehicles but also for the sidewalk network, because these are all new roads that will have sidewalk. This type of incremental improvement to connectivity is in line with the comprehensive plan. I already mentioned that the site is basically devoid of trees today. There are some trees on the site near the southern border, generally speaking, and you can see on the development plan that we have committed to providing 20% tree preservation. What you cannot tell is that basically means we are committing to saving every existing tree on the property, except for those that will be removed for the required road connections. That equates to about 20% tree preservation. Tonight, I want to add a commitment to provide 20.5% tree cover, which that will be made up. We're still going to be committing to the 20% tree preservation, but we also are adding a commitment to plant back 0.5% new trees for tree cover purposes. There will, of course, be even more trees planted on the site based on the UDO's landscaping standards, but those are not necessarily considered tree cover. But this is a project, maybe one of the few, maybe the only one, that will actually result in more trees being on the site after development than before, which I think is pretty cool. I also should note that we already have committed to using native species for required plantings throughout the site. I think that's pretty important, good commitment here. We also already are committing to handling the 100-year storm, which we understood to be an important issue from area residents. And to help achieve this, we're going to reduce our maximum impervious coverage area from the UDO 70% to 60%. We don't have a fully engineered site plan, so we can't say for certain where that impervious surface coverage will end up, but we have enough information to make a commitment tonight to reduce our maximum allowed impervious coverage from 70% to 60%. We also want to add a commitment to achieve green building metrics. Residential units will be designed to meet bronze or higher NGBS or achieve an Energy Star score of at least 75. We have run all these new commitments by staff already. Unfortunately, we did not get it to them in time for them to be included in your packet, so that's on us. But I think these are great improvements to the project nonetheless. As the development plan stands currently, we do have a monetary contribution to DPS in the amount of $24,000. We also have a monetary contribution to the Dedicated Affordable Housing Fund of $120,000. Tonight, I want to remove that commitment and instead make a commitment to provide 5% of the housing stock as affordable at the 80% AMI level for a period of 30 years. My client on this project, MI Homes, is candidly, they are not an affordable housing developer. However, they have been very committed to providing affordable housing in the communities where they work. And they have recently found a partner that they can work with in Durham. And so we're able to make that commitment tonight, which I think really strengthens this project and moves it a lot closer to the goals of our community. Like other projects you've heard tonight, I think this is a small, sensible project. It is in line with the comprehensive plan. It's already consistent with the place site map, just as it was, and with the new improved commitments. It provides, much needed housing, affordable housing. It also provides housing variety in this region and robust stormwater controls, native plants. I think there are a lot of reasons to vote yes, and I hope you will tonight. Our team is available to answer any questions that you may have, and thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you. I'm just going to jump in and ask a quick question as we're getting ready for our speakers. When you all are looking at the housing types, you're looking at the area overall. Is that accurate? Well, just to give you context, I'm asking because what would prevent from having more housing types on this site?
Yeah, so the answer to that question I would say is yes and no. So the place site map in this area is pretty interesting. It's got the mixed residential, I think that's right, mixed residential neighborhood place site map designation. However, the size of that designation on this place site map is very small. The communities that are right adjacent to us are not in the mixed residential neighborhood place type. So they're not really part of the consideration from like a comprehensive plan standpoint as to are you having a variety of housing in this place site map designation. That's per place site map designation. So that's one consideration. And from that perspective, the mixed residential neighborhood place site map designation in this area is quite small. I believe it's around 20 acres, all of it together. This project is 13 acres of it. And then from MI Homes, their marketing perspective, yes, they are absolutely looking at what's available in the area. They also are looking at what makes sense economically for their project and also for the people of Durham for housing in this area. So what is available already directly, immediately adjacent to this property is just single-family homes. That's all there is. There are some townhomes being built at 509, about the zoning allows for 40, but I think the site plan shows something like 37 townhomes on the adjacent site. And so that went into MI Homes consideration for this site. This is in the grand scheme of things for them, a small project. It's at most 100 units. So for them, it's difficult to establish two different product lines that make sense for how they market their properties. So they're looking at this site as a small development on their books that's going to be all one unit type, which in this case townhomes.
Thank you. Remember, I asked this question for some later times. All right, I'm going to move to our speakers. I have Tammy Sawaga, Pam Andrews, Pam Williams, Donna Standback, and Becky Freeman.
Are we here?
In that order.
Right. Okay.
And I'm still getting some reverb on my mic. If you can hear me in the back. Take that back. You all sit back down.
Oh, sit back there.
All right. Yep, sit back down. I have started with the online. Trying to be consistent here. I have Wanda Allen, Tina Motley Pearson. If you all can hear, Ms. Wanda, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Hey there, Ms. Wanda. You have 3 minutes. Welcome.
Hello, thank you. Hi, I'm Wanda Allen. My address is on record. Yes, I want to address tonight the issue that we keep bringing up before the council. You'll see photos, you probably have seen the photos on social media that clearly shows that the new settlement and erosion standards are not working. You will see that this project will have an impact on this project will clearly have an impact on our creeks and our lake. You also will see tonight some of the retention ponds are topping out and running over directly into our streams. Photos that you will also have seen on social media and as well as in the TV media show the creeks before construction, they are clear. And once the construction begins, they turn blood red. So you also know that we have a problem because the taxpayers are continuously having to pay to clean this up. So just for a reminder, in FY24, Upper Neuse River Basin was $1.3 million. Algae scrubber was $2.5 million to clean up Falls Lake. The North Carolina Land and Water states that $57.7 million. And then on February the 28th at the city council meeting, you guys said it would cost about $18 million to do the Ellerby Creek phase 3. So that adds up to $79.3 million that we as taxpayers are having to foot to clean up this development. So what we want you to do is take a stand. Do not continue passing these developments until the settlement and control standards are revised to handle this type of soil. This is your opportunity now, you guys, to take a different route. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Allen. Ms. Motley Pearson, can you hear me?
Yes, can you hear me?
I can. Welcome. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor Williams and members of Durham City Council. My name is Tina Motley Pearson, and of course, my address is on record. My colleagues are covering environmental issues, so I'm going to cover infrastructure or lack thereof in Southeast Durham. So, you know, we keep talking about Durham being the 4th largest city in North Carolina, and oh my gosh, how we have grown in numbers of people, but we don't have the services to support the growth. For instance, the closest police station to answer our calls in Southeast Durham is in Wellens Village near Holloway Street, and they are short-staffed. According to a recent report from CBS 17 on May 31st, 2024, there are 140 police officer vacancies in Durham, so they have to have officers come in off the clock, and of course, the response times are lagging. We're also in desperate need of a new fire station. It should also be noted that Station 8 does not even have a ladder truck. Again, as more people move to the area, the statistics for more accidents goes up. Maybe the current fire station could handle 1 accident, but what about 2 accidents at one time? More people, more potential accidents. And speaking of more people and accidents, North Carolina Highway 98 is over capacity with over 15,000 annual average daily traffic per NCDOT 2023 counts. Additional developments in the area will increase traffic by 30,236 vehicle trips per day along North Carolina Highway 98, Olive Branch Road, Sharon Road, and Camp Road in Durham. If Durham is the largest city in North Carolina, it doesn't function like it. Please vote no on the ALFORD Tract. These issues need to be addressed before we keep adding more development in this area. Thank you so much and have a good evening.
Thank you so much. All right. Now, in the order I called up, you all now may come up. Welcome. You have 3 minutes each.
Okay, if you can get that on the screen. Presentation? Perfect.
You have a presentation? Okay.
Awesome, thank you. Tammy Sueya, my address.
Oh, hold on 1 second. All right, let's make sure that mic is on.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, that's much better.
Okay, I was too far away. Okay. Tammy Sueya, my address is on record. Thank you, City Council, for letting me speak here. Before I start talking about this slide, the one thing that I want to point out that I want you to think about as we go through our slides is that there is 1,700 feet from this annexation site to Lick Creek. And the topography is downhill. So anything that's done on this annexation is highly likely will be going straight to Lick Creek. So I want you to think about this. So there's 30-foot drops, so this site will require blasting. So a couple of things that we want to make sure that is asked, and I think Neil addressed this, is we want all buffers to be undisturbed, preserve the grass, the trees to help reduce sediment loss from the site. We'd like 50-foot roadway buffers with 1 opacity with trees and shrubs. Request that planting of trees and shrubs along boundary to be completed prior to mass grading to minimize dust on homes and in ponds. And I also want to point out that there's no continuous sidewalk for pedestrians and bike lanes along Sharon Road. Here is the updated map of what's out here in Southeast Durham. There's 42 dense developments under construction, 17 more have approved. That's 59 developments. 41% in this area are approved townhomes, 20% are apartments, and 39% are single-family homes. In this area, you've got the townhomes to the right under construction, and then you have the 2 developments around there. And I want to point out to the topography to the right, that's where, with the downslope, it's going to go straight to Lick Creek. Plus, you have Sharon Farms Pond to the right of this as well. So really, the environmental concerns is what is utmost important in this annexation. And then here again, here's a picture of the consequences of all this development, 59 developments, and 42 under construction right now. going straight into Raleigh's drinking water, which is going to be more cost for them to filter out and to clean out. And what we're doing on erosion control is not working. And it's going to be really interesting to see how when Debbie comes this week, to see how our creeks are changing even more. Thank you. You got it?
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Well,
Next up.
we have 3 minutes, is that right? I got it.
Each.
Okay, all right, want to make sure. Good evening, my name is Pamela Andrews, Wake Forest Highway. I brought my sample of creek today. I just want to share concerns about ALFORD TRACT, specifically due to stormwater and erosion control issues due to mass grading, clear cutting, and blasting. Policy 86, which is right here, it does address in the comprehensive plan the need to protect water sources that provide drinking water for adjacent counties. Mass grading is causing Triassic Basin soil to flow into Falls Lake, Wake County's drinking water, as seen in this photo. I think I got it. The new sedimentation erosion control amendment was put in place last May 2023 with hopes to stop the sediment pollution known as tomato soup. There were new steps required, including flocculants, and the steps are on this slide, but the amendment is not working. In a letter in June to the stormwater employees, we wrote and exchanged, he told me there are 302 active land disturbance permits at that time. 34 were in Lick Creek watershed alone, just Lick Creek. A total of 2,000 acres is being disturbed just in that one watershed. Only 7 of the 34 sites were required to follow the new guidelines. 80% were not. Sediment still flows into the creeks as shown in this photo from May 29, 2024, which I took. Note there are only 5.5 erosion control technicians to monitor the 302 permits. The NC Sedimentation Pollution Control Act of 1973 prohibits sediment from leaving the job site. Developments who pollute are violating their sediment and erosion control permits, which prohibits off-site sediment. This supports the Clean Water Act. The lawsuit by Sound Rivers and local plaintiffs has moved forward in federal court concerning violations to the Clean Water Act. In a thorough, favorable opinion, U.S. District Court Judge Thomas Schroeder ruled that the motion would not be dismissed as requested by the developer. The damage to the environment and our creeks is real. Lick Creek is 1,700 feet from this property, as Tammy mentioned. After mass grading and blasting of the earth, sediment will flow down this steep topography to the creek, no doubt. As Hurricane Debbie looms over the next few days, please come look at the creeks after the storm passes. See the volume of sediment that we're talking about moving towards Falls Lake. It's mind-boggling. Please halt development and revisit this amendment. I might add my last few seconds, I had a lady reach out to me today who called, and there's a CBS 17 story supposed to air tonight on her story. I've not personally met her yet, but stormwater erosion is flowing over her property as it's heading to creek in Little Lick Creek. Please, please help us and our creeks. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next up.
Good afternoon. My name is Pam Williams.
Speaking to that.
Speak a little bit louder.
Closer to the mic.
Okay. My name is Pam Williams. My address is on file. I am not opposed to the development, but I am opposed to the minimum open space, recreation area, tree coverage, impervious surface, although I understand it has been improved a little bit by 10%. And the minimum roadway boundary buffers. Better environmental considerations such as additional tree coverage, more boundary buffers, and better stormwater practices need implement in this area. On this particular slide, roadside buffers or roadway buffers are proposed along this arterial right. There's none proposed for this project. We request a 50-foot roadside buffer with a capacity of 1, providing trees and shrubs along Sharon Road. This will provide an attractive vista and additional ground cover. The developments on Sharon Road constructed in 2018, as shown here on this picture, show a fence that has deteriorated with no trees and shrubs. Example 2 of what's being built on Sharon Road. This was built by MI Homes. Minimized buffers create unsightly roadway frontage for the citizens and over 11,000 vehicles per day that must travel along Sharon Road. Minimum setbacks do not provide any privacy for the homeowners and easy access from the public sidewalk or safety issues. These trees will not produce any measurable shade until 10 and 20. We need better than this and all. Here I'm showing you an example 3 of what is recommended. This is on Sharon Road also. Setbacks and boundary buffers on our major roadways have apparently decreased from what was required in 2010, as shown on Orchard Ridge Townhomes and Brightleaf Subdivision on Sharon Road. In addition, Dale Webb and Fennel Farms provided the 25 to 35-foot setbacks on Leesville Road, in addition to the 25-foot right-of-way dedication. Orchard Ridge has at least a 35-foot buffer, and the townhomes can hardly be seen due to the dirt mound, trees, and shrubs, the good landscaping. With more and more developments and climate issues, shouldn't we be pushing to provide more instead of less for our environment? There must be a better balance between the need for dwelling units and environmental provisions. Also, with the last 20 seconds, this is behind my house. This is on May the 6th on the right, where they had just started blasting and grading. Then the one in the middle is July 25th, after a rain came after the long drought. And as you can see, the water is running very red. And then this is 5 days on the right, 5 days after. So this is 1,000 feet. So if you can compare the two.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I'm going to press pause right there. I am 9 minutes over, and we have some support staff in the background that their hands are hurting right now.
I understand.
So I'm going to take a 10-minute break, and we'll be back at bad math 9:20. So 11-minute break.
Owning a home provides a sense of financial stability, family, community, and pride. But housing prices are now higher than ever, making it hard for many Durham residents to afford their first home. That's why the City of Durham is offering the Down Payment Assistance Program to support eligible individuals with up to $80,000 in 0% interest forgivable loans to purchase a house within the city limits. Visit this site or call to find out if you qualify for the program.
Everyone in Durham should be able to find a home they can afford. That's why Forever Home Durham is creating affordable, livable, and inclusive communities for low to middle income residents. From renting to owning, find out how the city is helping more people find homes right here in Durham. Learn more at foreverhomedurham.com.
Here's some tips to ensure that your garbage and recycling gets picked up. 1. Your cart should be put out for collection before 6 a.m. on your collection day. 2. Your cart should be at least 3 feet from all other objects such as mailboxes, telephone poles, fire hydrants, trees, and other carts. 3. Your cart should be no more than 3 feet from the curb. 4. No vehicles should be blocking your carts. The mechanical arms on our trucks need direct access to your carts and cannot reach around vehicles. To find more information about garbage and recycling pickups, go to this web address.
All right, thank you so much. We are about to get back started, and right now, yep. All right, welcome. You have 3 minutes.
Okay. Okay. Good evening, Mayor Williams and Durham City Council. My name is Donna Steinbeck, and my address is on file. We request that the developer commit to no blasting. If blasting occurs, then over 200 homes will be at risk for home, well, or septic damages with no recourse for the citizens. Durham City holds the bond on the blasting companies for $1 million. Can Durham City please help the residents that have suffered from damages like Junction Road and others? No reimbursements have been made for the damages by the city blasting. Why other cities are being compensated, we don't understand, because we've actually got a picture of one situation there from Raleigh where the blasting went through, and they got it and they cleaned up all the dust and everything around there. The impacted citizens do not have the funds for the lawyers. Besides the home and the forest damage, blasting creates erosive soil that becomes sediment runoff, violating the Sediment Pollution Control Act. We also request that the planting of trees and shrubs along the boundary be completed prior to the mass grading to minimize the dust on the roads and in the ponds, and especially that due to blasting. But need to advance the chart here. You can see some of the air pollution there on the chart. This is very needed because there's a lot of people in that area, surrounding that area. Also, we're still very concerned about the well damage, as I mentioned, and the Durham County residents on Junction Road are fed up after nearly 2 years without safe drinking water. See the woman in the picture? She is setting up, trying to capture the rainwater, and that was done by Channel 17. This is simply inhumane. It's easy for, let's say, politicians to say you can simply be annexed into the city and get water, but it's not that easy. Civil engineers must draft plans at a high cost to the homeowners, and then someone must pay for the pipes to be constructed. An estimated from the article that we got was $600,000 for this neighborhood. Who can afford this? The residents and others impacted deserve better. The water flowing in their homes wasn't filled with sediment before the developments blasted around them. Also, I'd like to make a comment about the traffic on Sharon Road is ridiculous. I have gotten caught in it, and it's backed all the way up to this development of an afternoon from Highway 98, and you have similar situation on Sharon, at Highway 70.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Welcome, Ms. Freeman.
Hi.
What happened to it?
I don't know.
Oh.
Oh, okay, good. Good evening, Council. I'm Rebecca Freeman, and my address is on file. I want to talk to you this evening about the amenities. There are no amenities to walk or bicycle to, considering the distance and safety. In this area that's up on the screen, there are 8 townhouse developments on Sharon Road. Some of the numbers of homes are Stella View is 230, it's under construction. Sharon Grove is 220 under construction. Wesley Downs is 150 under construction. So there are a number of them that are under construction and have actually built out. Apartments are approved at Wake Forest Highway and Sharon Road, and a number of single-family dwellings, including higher density tracts, have been recently developed. There's not just local traffic on Sharon Road and Wake Forest Highway. Sharon Road is an active major corridor from Highway 70 to Interstate 85. Wake Forest Highway is an active major corridor from Durham to Wake Forest. There are continuous pedestrian designated sidewalks along, there are no continuous, pedestrian sidewalks along Sharon Road or Wake Forest Highway. There are no continuous bicycle designated corridors along Sharon Road or Wake Forest Highway. And at their intersections, there are no pedestrian crossings that are safe to be used. Road shoulders are very narrow and often overgrown with weeds and thorns. There's no place to safely walk or bicycle. The Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Commission made 5 recommendations to ALFORD TRACT plans. None were included. None. No transit is planned for this area. No scheduled road improvements for this area. Please explain the 25 feet right-of-way dedication on Sharon Road. ALFORD TRACT has the highest density with a PDR of 7.698, and the ALFORD TRACT has the highest impervious rating of 60% of the developments around there. The very highest you can get is 70. They are at least a little bit lower, but it's very, very high. All tree preservation is in buffers. There is a limited number of trees on this acreage. I understand that, and they don't have that much to go around. Without trees and with Triassic soil, this site is destined to have erosion control problems, big time. What will be required of the developer to stop erosion is a big, big problem, as you've heard in the previous people that have talked. With no mature trees intermingled with the townhomes, this development is destined to be a heat island. This needs to be addressed. There are heat islands in the city now, and the Urban Tree and Forestry Program is working to try to eliminate those. 1/3 of the open space is required to be active recreational open space. What is this plan to be? What is the description of this? There's nothing in the plan about this. Is it in the drainage area? In closing, the ALFORD TRACT presented is too dense for this area, and it's such a congested area that we need something different planned on this track. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Right. Those are all of the speakers I have signed up here. And at this time, I am going to declare this hearing, public hearing closed and back before the council. I'm sorry. Mr. Ghosh. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm not closing this public hearing yet. Mr. Ghosh, do you have any response? All right. I do not have any other speakers, so at this time, I will bring this public hearing to a close and back before the council. Before we get into questions, I did want to address the water situation and not let that be lingering. Staff, this county water situation, is that something we can do, or is that, I remember in the past, I know it's been news stories on it, but I don't want the news stories to be like considered just the only source of information. I've seen this before about something about a water tank and county residents having to, it was just in the presentation, so I want to just make sure that we aren't having residents without clean water.
This is Junction Road.
Yeah, Junction Road. So I'm more so asking you to clarify the question and put it on record that this is not a city, the city's not doing this to folks, but you can address it.
Understanding your question correctly, and I may have to phone a friend from the administration, but residents have been given options for how to move forward. I think the county presented them with some options for community well or other things. And on the city side, to access city water and sewer, they have been, staff has met with them and talked through the process for annexation to petition for that.
Okay, so I just wanted to make sure I stated to the public that we are aware of it. We've provided an option as much as we can under the jurisdiction that we have. It is a county matter that I hope can be addressed. And I know how news stories can report. They just sometimes report the sensationalism of it. But I just wanted to put on the record that the staff is aware. Colleagues. Councilmember Cook.
All right, Attorney Ghosh, these are going to be questions for you.
Councilmember, could you pull your mic closer to you?
No, I can't, but I will slide.
Oh, I see. They're a little different.
I'm not going to Okay. So at the Planning Commission, you noted that, and forgive me, I can't remember if you actually presented this one or if your colleague did. I think it was, your colleague, yep.
Yeah.
Okay. So he had stated that the development across the street did not require blasting, and that was leading him to believe that this project would not require blasting, but y'all were going to look into it more. Are you ready to commit to not blasting on this project?
No, we don't have enough information to commit to not blasting here, and I believe, Eric, correct me if I'm wrong, the project across the street that he's referring to is a MI Homes project. So I think that
Project across the street is what?
is a project that was built by the same developer, MI Homes, which is why we had the information about the project across the street. It did not require blasting, but we do not have enough information about this site to make a commitment that there will be no blasting.
And then also at the Planning Commission, there was some conversation around the BPAC suggestions and connectivity promotion, and I believe that y'all stated that you were not going to proceed with any of the BPAC recommendations. Is that still correct?
So I don't know that that's what was said at Planning Commission. There are a number of BPAC comments, and some of them, as we've talked about earlier today, are maybe inconsistent with the guidance we've gotten from other departments, so we've not included those. The second one talks about building a raised crosswalk across the Sharon Road access point to keep pedestrians at the level of the sidewalk while crossing. So that's a commitment that we can make tonight, as long as it's subject to approval at time of site plan by, I think it would be Transportation or Public Works, I'm not sure. But that's a commitment we can add. It's just unclear that that's what will be desired there from the department. The third commitment is about a 12-foot multi-use path. We have committed to a 10-foot multi-use path. And then build a 10-foot pedestrian and cyclist accessible connection to Wellwater Avenue along the northeast border. So we looked at this one. We don't have a connection to Wellwater Avenue, at least the way it looks at on the map. I don't think we touched that street, and instead there is an intervening HOA-owned property there that I'm not sure is set up for cross-access. So we didn't make that commitment. There will be connections to Pembroke Drive, which I believe that's the one to the south. Yeah, so Pembroke Drive, there will be a connection to Pembroke Drive. Will match that road section that's coming through there, which I believe has sidewalk and it's also a road.
Okay.
And we're required to make that connection, just to be clear. That's not an additional commitment. That's just kind of required by the UDO.
I mean, it does say in our packet because the Pembroke one also says like none provided here in the packet. So that's why I think part of the question was, so it's showing here in our materials that connection is not being.
Right, we didn't make a commitment. It's already required in the UDO.
Yep.
Yeah, that is correct. They would need to connect to Pembroke Drive, and they would need to provide the roadway to city standards, which would include sidewalks. Is that a commitment you're making regarding the raised crosswalk?
Yeah, with the caveat that it would have to be approved at time of site plan.
So it would be, yeah, and also subject to approval by NCDOT, since Sharon Road is a state road.
Thank you for that clarification. I would add that caveat as well.
Thank you.
Okay, and then just one more question. And again, it was your colleague, but at the Planning Commission, the statement was that there would be talks about adding affordable units in addition to the cash proffers. But I think I heard you earlier say that these units were actually going to be a substitute for the cash proffer. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, so no cash proffer at this point and only the 5% units.
Right, yes.
Thank you. I have no further questions.
Councilmember Caballero.
Yeah, I just wanted to raise this because the crosswalk has come up in other circumstances, and I think part of the issue is that the approval comes from NCDOT, and
Sorry, could you speak into that a little bit?
yeah, it's on, it's just not.
You just have to.
I think they're just not as sensitive tonight. Anyway, the issue has come with the raised sidewalk before. Same thing, a BPAC asked the developer, and it was a different case, but it is non-alignment between NCDOT and what BPAC is requesting. And so I think that I will not be surprised. I appreciate the proffer, but I won't be surprised if the return from NCDOT is no. So I just want to share that with colleagues because this has come up on a number of cases where BPAC makes a request. There's at least an investigation done by the applicant to see if it's possible, and often the return, especially if it's a state road, is NCDOT does not want it. So I think that that's just something that as policymakers, those of us who are on MPO and in other spaces, again, having those conversations with NCDOT around the commitment of Vision Zero and Complete Streets that they've adopted, and so have we, but really what does implementing that vision look like? So I think and it's unfortunate for our applicants, so again, really appreciate the proffer, but I'm just raising that so that colleagues aren't surprised if that comes back from NCDOT the way it does. Thank you.
So if anybody out there is interested in trying to get on a DOT board,
Can I just respond to that just for what you said, I agree with. I also will point out, and I see that Bill Judge is here from City Transportation. The feedback we get from the City of Durham Transportation when it's a city road is oftentimes, typically they don't want to raise sidewalk there. A raised sidewalk is generally, my understanding, an accommodation you would use in a high pedestrian traffic area. And it is for safety reasons, but if you don't have a high pedestrian count, then the raised crosswalk tends to be an impediment, particularly for like emergency service vehicles. So they typically don't want them unless you have a lot of pedestrian activity. But that's coming directly from the city, at least in conversations that I've had with the city. So sometimes it's not a DOT road and you still get the same result.
Bill Judge, Transportation. I would just clarify the design is more related to the driveway and the speed or the prioritization of pedestrians over vehicles. So in this particular case, NCDOT is requiring a right turn lane into the driveway. They are very unlikely to allow that sort of street type connection because they're going to be looking to prioritize the right turn vehicles over the pedestrians. So that, we do utilize the sort of raised sidewalk type across driveway in many places. Often, even up and down, commercial corridors, you'll see that utilized at high volume driveways. So it's more just a function of whether or not you're designing to accommodate pedestrians or vehicles.
Thank you, and I guess that's my point, is that we're going to consistently have that kind of philosophical issue, right, with NCDOT that has so much control over our roads. So I always appreciate BPAC's comments, but it is something that we have to get better at figuring out. How do we push NCDOT, and then also how do we get our advocates to ask for things that, okay, if it can't be that, what else is there? What is the other tool that gets us more safety? Thank you.
Yeah, we'll keep pushing. Like we have these interstates to go through the city. We're working on that. All right.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, colleagues. So this case is kind of hanging in the balance for me to something you said earlier this evening. Just say one more time what the proffer is in terms of affordable housing.
So 5% of the final unit count would be provided at a rate which is affordable to households earning 80% of the AMI for a period of 30 years.
30 years?
Yep.
The cash proffer, if I read correctly, was $120,000?
Correct.
Okay. I guess what's impactful for me is that apparently the Planning Commission found that unimpressive. because they clearly heard $120,000, which is on the higher end of what we normally get for these proffers for the Affordable Housing Fund. But they did, and I read the comments, even the no comments are kind of soft no's in some of these comments. One comment says that actually it's a no, but it said I'm not necessarily opposed to this development as it adds housing stock to the limited stock we currently have, but the environmental impact. Others talked about it already being clear-cut and lending itself to development because of the lack of trees already on that site, which I found interesting. It was a split decision, but even the no's, if you read the no's, and the majority of the no's mentioned the absence of affordable housing, even in light of the $120,000 proffer, which you've now put on the table. You know, I was saying to my colleague, Councilmember Ritz, earlier, I don't have a problem with the good cop, bad cop thing. I think that if developers are responding to the Planning Commission even after the fact, after the meeting, and they're coming back and making substantive changes that comport with what they've asked for, I don't think that's a bad thing. I think it's a good thing, actually, and I think that's a testament to their impact. I do want to say a couple of things. I always appreciate hearing when members of our community come out, and Preserve Rural Durham has been stalwart, and they've been impactful as well, particularly with respect to our sediment requirements. Now, we may differ on whether or not we've had enough time to gauge whether or not those changes are actually taking impact. It's going to take some time for the projects that have been passed according to those changes to gauge whether they're impactful or not. So we differ on that, but I do think that the work that they've done and the impacts are substantive and codified, actually, which is a good thing. Mr. Latham and MI Homes Raleigh, are they currently in any litigation or being sanctioned in any way or scrutinized in any way for doing any damage to anyone's homes and blasting? Is your client currently, have you had?
You mean from, I mean, MI Homes, so this is Erica Latham with MI Homes.
Is that, okay, is that Mr. Latham? Do you mind?
They're a large company.
Yeah, MI's.
So
the
I
Raleigh.
think she might be able to answer that question with respect to like Durham or Carolinas.
Have you had any complaints or any lawsuits leveled against you within this area, within our purview, anyone with respect to blasting?
No, not since I've been with the company, which is about 6 years.
Okay. Thank you. So I heard a few things very quickly. I heard moratorium, full stop, which I don't think we're legally empowered to do. And if we are, that's another discussion. Then I heard moratorium on blasting, which I don't think we have the power to do. But let me say this. If we have the power to institute a moratorium on blasting, I'd support it. If it's deemed that that is not too substantive or heavy-handed an impact on the profitability, I know the context, legal context in which we operate in North Carolina. If that would deem that it's not a substantive impact or undue a burden on developers, and if industry best practices provided them with another way to do it, and we have the power to say you have to stop blasting, I'd support it. So I'm on record saying that. I don't think we have the power to do that. So we have a recommendation for a moratorium. Then we have a moratorium on blasting. But then we also have engagement about buffers and standards. So it seems as though there's kind of a descending order. If one doesn't work, then the next thing, which I appreciate. I don't think that's a bad approach. But as a policymaker, what I look for are concrete on-ramps that will actually impact the policy. For example, saying that a developer, well, because, and the Planning Commission is saying some of these things out loud that I can't say out loud. I can't say to a developer, if you don't do affordable housing, I'm not voting for your development. I can vote against it, and I can say it internally, but I can't say that out loud as a fiduciary of this city. I can't say that we wrote the UDO, we established the standards. Hey, if you don't exceed the standards that I wrote, then I'm going to ding you. No, I need to write whatever standard I want into the UDO, and whatever our minimum needs to be our maximum, whatever we think it should be. And Councilman Baker has been stalwart in talking about the importance of rewriting this UDO. But as a representative of the city, I can't establish the rules and then say, hey, if you follow this particular rule, I think you should exceed it. No, it's my responsibility to write the rule I want them to follow. So I'm not opposed to some of the things that are being proposed. Many of the things I espoused before I got this job and learned what the limits of this job were and are. So I just want to say respectfully to our folk out there that some of the things that we're being asked to do, in my assessment, I've heard it from legal folk here in City Hall, from the league, and I've asked, we just cannot do. And we certainly can't say it out loud and tether it to our votes, create a causal linkage between our votes. That's going to bring a whole nother world of scrutiny for our city that we just simply don't want. So with that, and the generalized concern, one of the comments was addressing environmental impact in this region. And the conversation about what we need to do generally in that region, be it environmental, be it infrastructure, be it fire or police, cannot be linked to one particular case. And I know it's a case-by-case basis and it creates a nexus, but for me, my vote, I don't know how to get to, I'm not going to approve anything else until we address this without some clear indication of what addressing this looks like. Is it zero sediment? Is that what we want? Do we build fire stations before people live there in anticipation of the people moving there? Do we put those resources in a part of the city where we could be putting them somewhere else where there actually are people? Do we put infrastructure in anticipation of thousands of people coming, or do we build it as they come? These are all decisions that go into the calculus of being good stewards of our funds. But I say all that to say that we hear you and we're listening, but when we actually put it into the crunch machine of actually making policy, there's some really specific questions we have to answer. So I'm going to support this particular development in large part because the things that the Planning Commission asked for, in spite of the $120,000 offer you have talked about, you have made a proffer to, which makes me feel better about supporting this project. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And thank you, members of the community.
All right. Yeah, Councilmember Baker.
The development that's happening in Southeast Durham is Durham's and probably the Triangle's greatest environmental crisis, the Triangle's greatest climate crisis. And it's happening because the growth that's occurring in Southeast Durham is not happening in a way that is sustainable. It is not following the practice of the 3Ds, density, diversity, and design. It is not preserving the right land in the right places and constructing dense, walkable places in the right places. It is simply corporate-driven sprawl. Single-family or townhouse, single-family attached or detached sprawl with little tiny bits of auto-centric commercial with huge distances between them. We are not requiring any public dedication of parks in these areas, which we are allowed to do under state enabling legislation. I hope we will do once we adopt the new UDO. We have the power to do all of these things through our regulations. We also can simply set a standard that through the discretionary review process, which this is, rezoning is a discretionary review process. Special use permit would be discretionary review process. Anytime a development comes before an elected or appointed body, that's the discretionary review process, and that's an opportunity to set a standard, communicate that standard clearly to developers, assuming we want development, which I do, and make sure that developers are aware and know of the vision and the values of the elected body, of the community, and of the comprehensive plan. I think that we have not been following our comprehensive plan. I think that that has resulted in this environmental and climate crisis that we are in. And I think that's why we see so much of the communication from the community that we have been seeing. I think that's why we are, if you go to an aerial of Southeast Durham and you zoom in, you can see it with your own eyes unfolding. You can see the sediment in the streams. You can see the cul-de-sacs. After cul-de-sacs, you can see the lack of street connectivity. And if you go there, you just drive through there, you can see that the design standards that are being applied to our streets and to our public right-of-ways are not consistent with the values of walkability, the values of bikeability, the values of transit, and creating a place that we all care about, and a place that is sustainable, something that makes Durham a better place, something that really truly embodies the values that we all know that Durham residents hold. That is something that has been taking place over the past months, over the past years, and little by little it has resulted in not just thousands upon thousands of acres, but literally square mile after square mile. We've grown by 10% of our land area in the past 5 years, and we continue to grow in this same way, whether or not it's consistent with the comprehensive plan or not. And that's something that needs to change. And we can change. We can change as soon as we decide that we want to embody that change, we can. The day that we decide we want to change it, we can. And it's going to be more robust once we are able to apply that through the Unified Development Ordinance, the new Unified Development Ordinance, which I hope that we will. We could easily rewrite the UDO and not accomplish those goals. So we're going to have to be very careful through the UDO. And the other way we can do it is by setting the standards through the discretionary review process and ensuring that our bodies, elected and appointed bodies, are holding developers to account for the kinds of developments that we want. I have spoken with corporate developers, some of the large corporate developers out there, and I think it's important to acknowledge the importance of calling out corporate developers because they either own a significant chunk of the land out there, or they will at some point own a significant chunk of the land out there, and they will be the ones that construct their developments out there. That means that there's essentially a form of monopoly, a form of monopolizing of the land out there. And when that happens, they can construct whatever they want because there's a need for housing in our city. And we are not providing our residents, even though we are building more housing, we're not providing more neighborhood types and the kinds of neighborhoods that people want to live in, kinds of neighborhoods that are sustainable, kinds of neighborhoods that are walkable. We talked a little bit about raised crosswalks and how raised crosswalks might only happen in places where you're going to find pedestrian activity. Well, that's not going to be something we'll ever have to worry about if we continue to grow and develop the way that we have been growing and developing. There will be no pedestrian activity. We won't have to worry about those kinds of things because everyone will be in their cars, and that is the city and the land that we will leave to future generations, and that will be our mark and our handprint on the land that we leave to the next generation. I say all that as context by itself. I think that it's what I just said is extremely applicable to other parcels that we have seen in the recent past, over the past several months. When it comes to a site like the one that we are seeing today, I came into this meeting almost assuredly voting against it. The reality is that when we are talking about sites that are not completely on the outskirts of our city, the decision becomes a little bit more difficult. So this is a smaller site. There's less that you can do with it. It is directly surrounded on all four sides by development. It's surrounded on the west, south, and east by annexed land that has already been annexed into the city. In the north, development that has been there, that's established, that is in the county. And so that does make this kind of decision a little bit more difficult, which I would distinguish from a large number of rezoning and annexation cases that we have seen in the past. And I hope that all of these cases can be learning opportunities for us. Do we value the environment? Do we value climate? Do we value walkability? And do we want to build a city that makes Durham better, that is consistent with the comprehensive plan, that's consistent with the values of our community? And I hope that we will think about that when we move forward. I'm not sure what will happen with this case, but I want us to think about that when we move forward. Because when it comes to cases that are more typical of infill, which I think we might call this some form of infill because it's surrounded on all four sides by development, these kinds of proffers, the tree cover, impervious surface, NGBS, and provision of some affordable units they are meaningful in ways that do not outweigh inconsistency with the comprehensive plan, which we often see in the larger cases that are on the fringe of the city that we see so frequently. I do have one quick question for staff, just that was raised. I wasn't going to ask this question, but I'm actually just curious for academic purposes. I actually think that there is a necessity occasionally in certain places for blasting. So I do think that it's important to have blasting as a possibility in some places and prohibit in other places. I'm just curious, and maybe you don't know, and maybe this is something for a future date. Is it possible to prohibit blasting?
I mean, it's certainly possible.
Is it legally possible in the state of North
That's a question for Fred.
Is that something?
You don't have to be that happy to give up the mic.
I'm up here. That's a question that we would like to answer at another time.
Let's do that another time, yeah. I would like to get the answer to that, though, at some point in the future. And like I said, for me, I do think that there's a place for blasting in some developments. So those are my comments. I think that we can, if we all come together up here on council and decide that we want to hold developers to a higher standard than we have been holding them, we can do that the day that we decide to do that. And we also need to do that through our new Unified Development Ordinance. So let's keep a close eye on that. Let's work closely with our community on that and our boards and commissions. And I am still on the fence on this particular case just because it is smaller. We have gotten good commitments, and it is also surrounded on all four sides by development. So that makes it a little bit more challenging. Thank you.
Thank you. There's, the question, I think it's really interesting. The initial package provided by the applicant was not something that was substantive. I'll just say that. I did not find it to be things, we have seen other applicants who have offered more. And so I am very appreciative of the proffers that were made this evening. Otherwise, I would have voted no. I think there is that back and forth where if you vote something down or you ask for a delay, often what we see is a return of a project that is better. That is the dance that we do with rezoning. And it is more art than science. And so I appreciate that we have 5% commitment. I appreciate the decrease in impervious surface. And the other things that were added. I think we got into it with the BPAC comments, and there's some deeper conversations that need to happen there, and how we get our bike community advocates to really push the tools that are going to get through. I know this part of town very well. In fact, many of your electeds live in this part of town because that's where they could afford a home. And that is the truth of the matter. Many of us were just in Oakland at a conference. We spoke about it. Afterwards, I traveled in Northern California and up through Oregon and ended up in Portland. And the level of homelessness that you see in California and Oregon are not something we really experience in Durham. And they have tenant controls that we don't have. Many of them have a lot of protections for tenants that we don't have, and they still have a very large homeless problem. And it's basically because California did not build enough units for the population it had. And now the population with means, the Californians who are able to, are leaving because it's gotten expensive, it's hard, there is climate catastrophe, it's fire season. It's quite frankly scary to be out there when it's fire season. You can see where the trajectory of the West Coast in the next 30 to 40 years. And it is also a very good roadmap of what will happen in North Carolina if we don't build enough housing for the folks who are here and the folks who are coming. It is critical that we build housing. It is critical that we build more densely. To say that building more densely is not a good environmental practice is wrong. I was a sustainable development minor 20 years ago. It was a huge part of what we studied was around sustainability practices in building. And compact, tighter cities are better. And that is what we are moving to. We are not there. That's what the comprehensive plan is leading us towards. We are not there. We're not going to get transit tomorrow. But we're never going to get transit if we just build single-family homes, which is essentially what many of these by right cases will allow us to do. Right now, we're going to get 100 townhomes. Is it exactly what I want? No. Is it better than the other things right around there? Yes. Is it higher standards that there were than 5 years ago? Yes. 5 years ago, we didn't get 5% of units. It took 3 councils to get that out of our development community, and now it's consistent. It actually is disrespectful to the work of the folks before you, the folks who sat here and got what we got through diligent work in a state that preempts you, that does not care about urban cities, and certainly does not care about the residents in urban communities, even though we pay for the majority of the state. So I will be supporting this case. Is it perfect? Absolutely not. Does it move the needle where we need to be? Yes. Why? Because it gives us better. It provides 5% of affordability. It improves on the environmental standards from before. It gets us closer to transit because there's going to be more roofs. I can't control for all of the other things, but I can control for that, and so I will be saying yes. And for the development community, yes, bring us your best. Don't bring us mediocre. We know the difference. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Rist.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just real briefly. Yeah, like many of my colleagues, I was on the fence coming into this meeting on this case. It's imperfect, but I do want to appreciate the proffer of the 5% affordability. That's critical. I mean, affordability is a huge issue. It continues to be one of the biggest issues in the city of Durham. I'll refer the folks in the audience and my colleagues to an article last week in the Washington Post. It's an article about rents nationwide. You can search by county average rents in the last year, and then since 2018. Our average rents since 2018 went up about like 31%, as they have around the country. Our average rents in the last year have gone down 0.3%, right? And we hear a lot of talk about corporate developers. Those rents aren't going down just because people are like, if the word is they're just greedy corporate developers, they're not lowering rents just to be good, right? The truth is that what we're doing here, making tough calls about conversations around environment, infrastructure, housing, results in we have more supply. That supply and demand equation is working in Durham. Our rents have gone down because there is more affordability. There's more supply in Durham. So I think that's a good thing, even though these are never easy cases as we evaluate them one by one. I would like to ask Mr. Ghosh real quick. You mentioned that MI Homes has a partnership with an affordable housing developer. I'm just curious what that looks like. Yeah, with that.
Yeah, so MI Homes, I've been working with MI Homes for years. I don't know how, at least 6 years. You said you've been there for 6 years. And I've worked with them in Durham. I've worked with them in other municipalities. MI Homes has, this is the way I would describe MI Homes. They acknowledge that they are not themselves an affordable housing developer. However, they are very in tune with housing affordability, and they try in pretty much every municipality that I've worked with them in, they try to find partners that can help them, that can help them and that they can help to deliver affordable housing. And so sometimes these, how do I put it, partnerships happen during the life of a project, right? So, and for this particular project, I know MI Homes is working on a different project in Durham that that's how they got the, I guess, inroad to this particular developer, and they're not local, right? They're out of Texas, okay? And so, this is a new partnership that they're trying out, and if it works out, then MI Homes will be pleased to do more and more of that. But, I guess the point I want to make is, for MI Homes, this is a always evolving situation. I know on projects that I have worked with MI specifically, they have partnered with Habitat for Humanity. They have talked to Habitat for Humanity for projects here in Durham and have not recently been able to, come to an understanding or agreement on how it would work. So they've gone to look for other partners. They have partnered with LIHTC developers. And this is not a LIHTC developer that they are partnering with on this, but they're going to continue to look for these opportunities wherever they're doing work. So my hope, sincerely, is that they continue to do work in Durham because they are really in my opinion, innovative, at least in my client list. They are very innovative in this space, trying to figure out how to deliver affordable housing in Durham.
I appreciate that, and I'll be supporting this case. Thank you.
Councilmember.
I appreciate my colleagues' comments. I just wanted to add a couple of things to kind of bring it back. But first, I want to talk about this narrative of supply and demand, because I feel like it comes up consistently. We are taking a correlation and attributing causation to it. Affordable housing is a nuanced issue. It is not simply a supply and demand issue. I feel like I hear this narrative come up all the time. We have extremely high vacancy rates in Durham right now. And also, we did see wild inflation in prices during COVID. So when we see these drops in prices, we can't just say that because we've been approving a bunch of developments that that's the reason that rents have gone down. It might be part of it, but it is not the sole reason. There are so many complicated factors that go into affordability, and I've talked about them before, and I just am going to keep harping on them because it's not simply also a price point. It also requires that you have amenities close by. It requires that you have transit. It requires that you have an environment that is sustainable, that you're going to be able to breathe in 20 years. I mean, there's all of these things that go into what it actually means to have affordable housing. And we get up here and talk about it in a really monolithic way. I think we just really do a disservice to our community. And we're really not up here, I feel like, trying to grow and listen and learn if we're kind of repeating these narratives that have, I think, led us down a really dangerous path in terms of rent and affordability. We had this conversation earlier in which my colleagues were really emphasizing the fact that purchasing land in this country is a source of wealth only because of a terrible capitalistic society that has allowed us to live in a place where not everybody has housing. Right? And like we can all agree that this is not a good system. And so it's hard to hear these narratives that sort of go against that idea coming to light in this conversation. So I just want to push back about that. We have to really talk about nuance up here. It's not enough to say that we're doing something that's creating affordability in Durham when we've got a lot of work to do, I think, in that realm. I want to associate myself with Councilmember Baker's statements. I think this is a complicated case for the reasons that he listed. He also talked a little bit about, and also the Mayor Pro Tem talked a little bit about how we are up here doing approvals of developments one at a time, and then we are sort of expected to be also taking into account an entire region. And I wanted to talk about, Commissioner Kopak stated this at the Planning Commission, and I thought it was really well stated that we're trying to meet the objectives of the comprehensive plan through individual projects. And what he said is that if we're going to do that, then what we have to look at is that each of these projects meets the minimums in terms of affordability, in terms of community goals, including environment, right? In terms of environment. All of these things, we have to be looking at every individual project and making sure that each of them is meeting those needs, because we are not able to do anything as a collective whole in that region. And so if we're going to be doing a case-by-case basis, each of these ones that come before us, we really need to know that they're going to be adding something to this region, not taking something away. So that's something I just want to state. Somebody else, I think, it also might have been Commissioner Kopak, talked about the growth of this area, and everyone here has noted it. I think everyone has driven through Southeast Durham. It is like devastating, I think, to see the clear cutting that's going on and the leveling that's going on in a place that was green. It's also a pain in the behind to drive on these roads. Everybody knows, there's no question about it. It's not great. It was compared to the fact that we're like sort of building a mini city in Southeast Durham. But if we were building cities, there would be a city center, right? Like there would be some sort of plan, like cohesion. like Councilmember Baker stated, some like thought towards connectivity and walkability, and that's not what we're seeing. Instead, we're seeing this sort of just haphazard, one developer at a time, chunks small, chunks large, completely disoriented and chaotic, and I don't think it's a good legacy. I feel really, really, really uncomfortable leaving that legacy of development in this area. I also want to read just briefly, since I'm just going to go all the way, circle back. I want to read the policies in the comprehensive plan that govern this designation. So we're looking at mixed residential neighborhoods. We heard from the applicant earlier, smaller than 20 developable acres. They don't have to mix housing types, but it should be mixed with the immediate vicinity. I raised some questions about whether or not that really is true. We're seeing a townhouse, which is technically a different thing than a single-family home, but they are still single-family homes. They are just attached rather than detached. So not too much diversity in terms of housing, but policy, page 193 of the comprehensive plan, it goes into further description about a mixed residential neighborhood, and it states, mixed residential neighborhoods are new places typically built on previously undeveloped or forested land, we have here. These neighborhoods are designed to add a diversity of housing types at different price points and densities to serve residents with a diversity of needs, ages, incomes, and lifestyles. While the primary use is residential, residents are served by supporting commercial, civic, and institutional places in immediate areas like schools, community centers, libraries, and small-scale grocery stores. Residents living in mixed residential neighborhoods can easily and safely walk, bike, and roll within and around their neighborhoods to get to supporting places and transit stops. Publicly accessible amenities like parks, trails, and recreational facilities are found throughout. So we're going to talk about the definition of these places. That is what is written in our comprehensive plan. I don't know that sitting up here on this dais that I have yet to see a Southeast Durham application that has met this, mostly because, as we've talked about, there is no plan for connectivity. And so we might have some of those things in the immediate vicinity. And this one is actually relatively close by if you can ever get there. To a grocery store, but there's no way that there's ever going to be 15 minutes walkability or safe biking in these areas. The very next page goes on to say that development of a new mixed residential neighborhood should be supported by existing public infrastructure like water, sewer, transit service, and roads, or phased to coincide with capital improvements. We do have the expansion of 54, but outside of that, we haven't really seen a lot of capital improvements that are slated to go at the same time. And I understand that there's a push and pull of what happens and how development occurs and do things follow the roofs. But again, if we are trying to meet our comprehensive plan, those are the definitions that have been written in. I also want to bring attention to the fact that the UDO, which we are also, following, we have this project meets 11, exceeds 5, but does not meet 7. That gives it a score of 56% in UDO, and then it does score slightly better in the comprehensive plan at 69%. All that being said, again, I'm going to echo my colleague and say that I'm undecided. I do think that because we have been, I think, not responsible in terms of looking at these individual projects, we've sort of left ourselves with this small tract of land that might not have any other good use here. And I am hopeful in hearing the partnerships that this developer has formed in the past, and clearly a commitment to affordability. So I'm hopeful that they will do good work on this tract of land, but I do think that we need to have a serious conversation moving forward about what we're willing to accept on this council.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I'm going to thank my colleagues. In my almost 7 years on the council, I've yet to be involved in an unserious conversation about the matters that come before us. The comprehensive plan is a plan. It's not a governance document. And by the way, this comprehensive plan was not passed unanimously. It was a split vote. It's not a governance document. It is an aspirational document, much like we hold these truths to be self-evident that all people, I should have said, are created equal. And we know we've struggled as a nation, and we still struggle to make that real, but it is still our central credo. And I want to say respectfully to my colleagues, you know, it's never occurred to me that when I may have a disagreement with my colleagues, it's never occurred to me that an option for me was to question their ability at appreciating nuance or question whether they knew what their job empowered them to do or not. It never occurred to me to question whether or not they care about the future of our city. To me, it just was that we saw things differently or see things differently, but we're all in good faith trying to solve the same problem. I actually want to associate myself with everything that Councilmember Baker said, including the last part. Waxed very eloquently about the overarching problem in the macro sense, and then said something that I think is very instructive, but it's complicated. Right. When we try and distill the macro down to actual policy making, it is complicated. And there are many nuanced factors in the decision. But my default position is that everybody on this dais, past and present, that I have served with, bring their best self, bring their best intentions. They're highly intelligent people that understand nuance and they understand their job, what they can and cannot do. Listen, this isn't an ego thing for me. I've been doing this job for almost 7 years. I'm the mayor pro tem of the city. I'm the president of one of the most influential organizations in the state. If there's a cheat code that I'm not getting about my job and what I can do and what I can't do, I'm listening. I'm here for it to explain to me the powers that I have that I wasn't aware that I have. And we are, I think we're all willing to do what we can do. But what I want to strongly caution us against, as a person who has his words parsed all the time, what I want to strongly caution us against is to be mindful. I think somebody up here said our intent versus our impact. I think we step to a line when we start talking about the ability of these elected people to deal with nuance, to deal with layers, to imply that the best interest of the future of the city is not in our minds, to suggest that we don't care about the environment, build, baby, build. As we've said, it's complicated. I live in Southeast Durham. I live with the impact. But as a decision maker, I also know that what I say no to is yes to something else. Something's going there. And part of my job is to manage outcomes. And I'll go toe to toe with anybody in the city in terms of espousing grand vision, and I'll meet you anywhere, anytime. But when it comes to the nuts and bolts and making the policy and taking the vote, I'm glad to hear that we understand, after all is said and done, that it is complicated. That this particular case, even in of itself, in light of all of the problems and issues that we face in Southeast Durham, is complicated. It's nuanced. But I look forward to joining with my colleagues moving forward in learning what we do not know about our job, in hearing from our legal people, hearing from call the School of Government, call anybody else, about what we can do and what we can't do. Because if I'm missing something, I'm here to learn. I'll be supporting this case. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. We are almost at 2 hours on this case. I'm going to try and bring us to a close. I think that there's been some rich debate, rich comments up here tonight. Mayor Pro Tem, you stated something I was going to say. I want to make sure that we're not insinuating that our comprehensive plan is a law that we have to follow as we do the UDO, but more so a guiding document. And I think that it's important that we do try and adhere to it as much as possible. Aspirational is probably the best word to describe it. So I want us to be very careful about how we portray that. But at the end of the day, supply and demand is actually, in fact, something you cannot overlook. That's fact. Also, to Councilmember Cook's point, it is very nuanced, affordable housing. But I think, at the end of the day, we're wasting our time trying to talk about an affordable unit. If we want to talk aspirational in reality, then we need to talk about affordable living. We need to talk about all of the components. But we also cannot ignore reality. We can be as academic or, we can be intellectual as much as we want. And we can talk about this in a very idealistic sense. But at the end of the day, when you walk outside, go down City Plaza Road or street, get on Highway 70 and go out there, what you're going to be dealt with is the state of North Carolina. You're going to be dealt with the hand that we have been given. And we can sit in here and we can wobble in the mud all we want about what we idealistically want to see. At the end of the day, we're in North Carolina. And that doesn't mean that we can't be, that doesn't mean we can't discuss these cases. It does not mean that we cannot get the best out of these cases that we want. But I want to make sure that we are being realistic and we're being honest about the cases that we have before us with the conditions in the state. We cannot ignore North Carolina. We cannot ignore the fact that, there are implications whether you vote one way or the other. At the end of the day, I don't care how idealistic we want to get about these cases. At the end of the day, you vote yes, you're going to get one thing. You vote no, you're going to get another. And the fact is, when you vote no, if we vote no, you're going to get what it is zoned for. And you know what? You can still say what you'd like to see on here. You can still say what it should be here, but you're going to get what it's zoned for. And once it's past us, that's it. So we can't ignore the implications of our votes. We can't ignore the fact of the matter is, at the end of the day, we can talk, it can be as nuanced as we want, but at the end of the day, you're going to get what it's zoned for, or you're going to get what it's requested for. And in that process, I agree, we can talk about the nuance, and like I said earlier, we can get as much out of it at this point in time as we want. But we cannot ignore the hand we've been dealt. And we also cannot, we can't expect that we're going to have the perfect scenario present when all of this has happened in the past. So we have to incrementally get there. And I don't need to be an urban planner. I don't need to be an engineer, civil engineer. I don't even need to be a developer to understand that. It is basic common sense. So we have to understand the leverage that we have in the specific point in the process. We can describe the players in the game all you want. At the end of the day, this is reality. And when we leave here tonight, this spot of land is going to have X number of units or a higher X number of units. And we can get out of it what we can get out of it. We got some proffers tonight. I'd like more, because we always want to have more. But otherwise, we're just talking about idealism and conceptualism as much as we want to be and not being realistic. Affordable housing, it's in my book, it's not as realistic or practical as affordable living. And I think affordable living is what we're trying to address and get to with the comprehensive plan, and we'll get there. But it's not going to happen overnight, and we can't keep decreasing the amount of units that we get, trying to get to more density. It just doesn't make sense. So with that being said, I'm going to bring us to...
Before you close, Mr. Mayor, I would like to...
Go ahead.
I just wanted to track back to a question for staff first. While they do come up, I did want to make sure that I did associate myself with the comments of Councilmember Baker and Councilmember Cook. And I want to appreciate at face value Mayor Pro Tem's request and hope that we do get a chance to have the conversation, because there are many municipalities across the state who have implemented different ideas around how development works, and I think that we can always learn more from our neighbors. I did want to just ask if there was a price tag attached to that cost for the community well versus the city annexation. I had hoped that someone else would have asked the question, and I was hoping I didn't have to ask it, but it didn't get asked, and I did want to ask.
Are you referring to Junction Road and potential community wells on Junction Road?
Yes.
Well, that information I do not have.
And just one thing to share is I do hear my colleagues, I've been here 7 years as well, and I think that we continuously have this break in our development cases where there are those who want to make sure that we get what we can, and some of us who feel like we can do something different. And I don't know that, I don't want to go back and forth, but I do want to make sure that we do come to some landing place, because I do know that there are serious concerns with that creek, and it's specific to Southeast Ellerbe or Southeast Durham. And I know that this is this is all, in my opinion, this would be the cases I would have not voted on. And to add insult to injury and add another one feels wrong, just knowing that it's clear cut, so that means all the rain or blasting or any soil movement is going to end up in the creek. Just doesn't feel right. And so I do have to say that I cannot support moving forward with this evening. But I am appreciative of everyone that comes out, regardless of whether you're new or you've been here 1,000 times. And just keep coming and making sure that we're hearing you. It's important that the people are involved in the process. And you're the unpaid eyes and ears on the street. So I just want to say thank you. Outside of that, and that's if we could get some pricing around that, because I do think, trying to alleviate someone's water issue, 2 years in running, I don't think that they would take it lightly, if there was a solution that they could afford. And if there's something we can do to help them afford that, then I think that's something as a city, since we've en-routed all of these developments, we should be able to offer some support in that. And so I'll leave it at that.
Are you referring to the Junction Road?
I'm referring to the homeowner who has been without
The Junction
clean
Road
water.
situation? Okay, all right. Colleagues, I am going to now bring this to a vote. All right, I'll now entertain a motion to adopt an ordinance annexing ALFORD Tract into the city of Durham, and to authorize the city manager to enter into a utility extension agreement with MI Homes of Raleigh, LLC.
Moved as read.
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded. Please, if you're all in favor, show by hands. All right, all opposed, show by hand. Madam Clerk, did you get that?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, the vote passed 4-3 with council members Cook, Baker, and Freeman voting no.
Thank you. I'll now entertain a motion to adopt an ordinance amending the Unified Development Ordinance by taking property out of residential rural, residential suburban 20 and Falls Jordan Watershed Protection District B, county jurisdiction, and establishing the same as planned development residential 7.698 and Falls Jordan Watershed Protection District B, city jurisdiction.
Moved as read.
Second.
Been moved and properly seconded. All in favor, please show by hand. All opposed, show by hand, please.
The motion passed 5-2 with council members Freeman and Cook voting no.
And motion 3 to adopt I'll entertain a motion to adopt a consistency statement as required by North Carolina General Statute 160D-605.
Move to adopt consistency.
Second.
Moved and properly seconded. All in favor, please show by sign of hands.
The motion passed unanimously.
Thank you. All right, colleagues, that is our agenda for the evening. Thank you all so much. Thank you, everyone, for coming out tonight. And I will see you all on Thursday. We are adjourned at 10:29.